Serafina's Pove. The next morning, the villa seemed too bright, too cheery for how heavy my body still felt. The sun streamed in golden slants across the dining hall, glinting off silver cutlery and porcelain plates, and one conspicuously empty chair. Kieran's. His absence should have been a relief. After last night's reckless brush with temptation, the last thing I needed was to meet his eyes over toast and tea, but instead it left a hollow weight inside me. And when breakfast was over, and he still hadn't shown up, I couldn't resist anymore, so I asked one of the Omegas where he was. She bowed her head and said he'd spent the entire night at the training grounds. That information filled the hollowness with something that made me queasy as I imagined Kieran slaving away on the training grounds. No bed, no sleep, just blades, sweat, and aching muscles. A punishment, maybe, or a way to exercise whatever pull had nearly unraveled us in the kitchen. I didn't pry further. If he wanted to exhaust himself half to death rather than face what had happened between us, that was his choice. However, by mid-morning, I realized that Kieran's absence was the least of my troubles. I'd been terrified of Samantha walking in on us last night and relieved when she hadn't, but apparently the walls of the villa had ears and mouths. Mouths that couldn't stop whispering. I caught fragments as I passed the halls, from maids lingering too long with their laundry baskets, guards stiffening when I walked by. I thought they were divorced? Could have fooled me with the way Alpha refused to leave her side yesterday. And did you see the way he looked at her? Did you see the way he carried her? Swoon. Maybe they're getting back together? They might as well, that they already look like a poster family on vacation. It was absurd and infuriating. Kieran and I were not in a million years getting back together. It was all just a colossal misunderstanding, and whatever. I didn't care what they thought. Or I told myself I didn't. But when Daniel came to me after lunch, brow furrowed and lips pressed tight, my heart sank. "Mom," he said, shutting the door behind him quietly, his dark eyes sharp in a way that reminded me too much of his father. "Is it true?" I straightened on the edge of the bed, gripping the edge of the book I'd been reading a little too tightly. "Is what true?" "The stuff everyone's saying." His throat bobbed lightly as he swallowed. "That you and Dad are getting back together." He said it like the words themselves were too heavy for him to carry. For a moment, I forgot how to breathe. This was exactly what I didn't want to happen, giving Daniel false hope, dragging him into the whirlwind that was my relationship with Kieran Blackthorne. With a heavy sigh, I set my book down beside me and opened my arms. "Come here, baby." In that moment, my beautiful, maturing young man turned into the clingy 2-year-old who screamed the roof down any time I left the room. He crawled into my lap and I folded him in my arms, laying my chin on his curly head of hair. I forced a steady breath. "Danny," I said gently, stroking his arm. "Listen to me. Your dad has only been attentive because I was injured. That's all. He's doing what any decent person would do." But people keep saying, "I don't care what people say." My voice sharpened before I caught myself, then softened again. I pulled back and tipped his chin up so I could look into his eyes. "What matters is what you think, not them." He searched my face for a long moment, then dropped his gaze to my lap. "What do you think, Han?" I asked, holding my breath for his answer. He shrugged, snuggling a little closer into me. "I think," he blinked up at me, "I think I don't want you and Dad to get back together." My eyes widened, and the breath whooshed out of me. That was so not what I was expecting, especially not after the conversation we had on my first day here. "It's just," he shrugged again. "I know I said I wanted you and Dad to get back together, but then I thought about it a lot, and then I decided." I swallowed hard. "And what did you decide, Han?" He idly played with the hem of his shirt. "That what I really want is for you to be happy." His voice cracked a little, but he kept going. "When you and Dad were married, you were always smaller, like you were trying to disappear. And even though you always smiled for me, I knew you weren't happy." My grip around Daniel tightened. I'd always tried to hide my feelings from him, but intuitive as he was, as wise as he was for his years, he'd seen it all regardless. "But since you divorced," he continued, "you're different. You laugh more, you do things for yourself now, and you don't let people like Grandma and Grandpa and even Dad push you around anymore." Tears pricked at my lashes, but I blinked them away, squeezing his hands. I think your new friends and—" He hesitated but pressed on. "Your boyfriend, I think you're better with them." I didn't even want to begin to investigate how he knew about Lucian and our new relationship. The adults in this villa seriously needed to learn how to keep their fat mouths shut around my precocious 9-year-old. "I don't think going back to Dad would make you happy again," Daniel said with quiet certainty. "And all I want is for you to be happy, Mom." My chest ached so deeply I could hardly breathe. I pulled him tighter into my arms, crushing him against me, inhaling the scent of his hair like it was the only air I'd ever need. "Oh, Danny," I whispered, "you have no idea how happy you make me. You're my everything, my joy." He wriggled but didn't let go, muttering into my shoulder, "You can find other joys, Mom. I don't mind. I just want you to put yourself first for once." I drew back, cupping his cheeks. "I promise you, no matter what anyone says, I'll choose what's right for me. For us." He nodded. "Okay. And when the timing is right," I smiled hesitantly, "if you want, I'll arrange for you to meet Lucian, my boyfriend, properly." Daniel's face brightened, shy and eager. "Really? Really?" I said. "He's important to me. But honey, I need you to know this." I kissed his forehead. "Nothing, not my new friends or boyfriend or anything else, will ever come before you. No matter what, you'll always be my first choice." Daniel's smile widened and he lay his head against my chest. "I love you, Mom. I love you too, my baby." I tightened my arms around him, burying my face in his hair. For a moment, the rumors, the whispers, the ghosts of the past, all of it faded, leaving only the steady beat of his heart against mine. Last night's forbidden heat with Kieran still smoldered at the back of my mind, but Daniel's words were a dousing rain, a reminder. Whatever temporary sparks the moon and venom had lit between his father and me, they weren't worth the price of my son's happiness. Or mine. Later that evening, I went looking for Kieran. Not because I wanted to see him. My body still hummed traitorously when I thought of his mouth on mine, but because the rumors needed to end. Before they grew into something Daniel couldn't ignore. He didn't deserve to hear lies in the corridors about his parents reconciling. I didn't have to look far. I was walking toward the west wing when I heard Blackthorn's steel in the air, his father's clipped tone, his mother's sharper one. They were speaking in the study. The door was ajar, just enough for the words to slide out. "Kieran," Leona pressed, "are the rumors true? Are you and Serafina reconciling?" My chest tightened. Kieran's voice was flat, cold. "No, it's a misunderstanding." A pause. Christian's baritone followed. "And yet you were seen carrying her. You've been guarding her, tending to her religiously. You must know how that looks." I should have left. Respectable people didn't eavesdrop. But my feet rooted to the floor. Kieran scoffed, low and humorless. "She's Daniel's mother. She was bitten by a snake and left weak." I did what was necessary. Nothing more. My throat closed. "Then you will make that clear to the household," his mother insisted. "We cannot afford gossip undermining. I already have." Kieran's voice sharpened, icy with finality. "And I'll quash any more rumors before they spread further. There is no reconciliation between me and Sarah. Not now. Not ever." "But—" His voice dropped, a growl lurking beneath. 10 years ago was a mistake, one I only just got free of. I assure you, I will not repeat it." Something fragile cracked inside me, and my feet could suddenly move again. I drew back from the door, careful not to let the floor creak beneath steps. My fingers curled into my palms until my nails bit skin. I had wanted Kieran to end the whispers. I should have felt relieved. Instead, I felt erased. Just Daniel's mother. A necessity. Nothing more. By the time I reached my room, the burn in my throat had cooled into steel. It was all for the best. After all, this visit was for Daniel's sake alone. Not for nostalgia, not for temptation, and certainly not for Kieran Blackthorn. And definitely, absolutely, not for the dangerous, treacherous part of me that still remembered what it felt like to be kissed as if I were the only woman in the world. Serafina's Pove. After that day, an unspoken truce seemed to settle between Kieran and me, both of us wordlessly agreeing on one thing: distance. We were careful with each other, deliberate, like rival soldiers who'd stumbled too close on a battlefield, retreating to their lines with weapons lowered but hands still tense on the hilts. We fell into a strange rhythm, not the comfortable kind that soothed, but one strung taut, like a bow pulled back too far. He no longer hovered around me or cornered me against walls and counters, no longer lingered behind me with that charged silence that made the air feel too tight. And I no longer felt the burn of his gaze when he thought I wasn't looking. At least, I told myself I didn't. And in truth, I clung to that distance as much as I resented it, because it was safer, for me. For him. For my baby boy, who only ever wanted his mother to be happy. My injury healed pretty quickly, and soon I was back on my feet. Speaking of healing, the bruises and hickeys Kieran left all over my body, illicit marks and traces and proofs of my recklessness and momentary lapse in judgment, all faded too, and I could pretend it was all just a very vivid, very lucid dream. I spent most of my days with Daniel, morning walks on the beach, steering clear of bushes and the ocean, watching them from a safe distance as Kieran taught Daniel surfing techniques, hovering nearby while he had his lessons with his tutor. And then, one morning, a week later at breakfast, Daniel said, his mouth smeared with mango, "Mom, now that you're all better, can we go on a family adventure?" His eyes shone, wide and expectant, the kind of look that made me feel like I could build an entire world with my bare hands if only it would make him smile. "A family adventure?" I repeated, setting down my fork. He nodded, curls bouncing. "I could plan it. We could explore the reefs, or go fishing, or sail to another island, or go on a hike, or build a bonfire on the beach and sleep under the stars, or—" "Slow down," I laughed. His joy was infectious, warming the morning air more than the Caribbean sun streaming through the windows. For a moment, the tension that had ruled the villa felt distant, banished by nothing more than my son's unfiltered joy. Kieran, who had been quietly sipping from a mug at the other end of the table, gave a low chuckle but said nothing. That's how he was when the three of us were together. He didn't speak unless he was spoken to, like he was always watching our interactions from outside a window. "Dad, what do you think?" Daniel asked, bouncing in his seat excitedly. "You'll come with us, right?" Before Kieran could answer, his phone buzzed against the polished wood of the table. A shot of irritation went through me that he had his phone when I couldn't, but it was quickly replaced by curiosity when he glanced at the screen, and his expression hardened. He stood, turning and moving a few steps away before answering. His voice dropped low, clipped. "Hey, it's early. What's up?" I tried and failed not to look at him, noting the way the muscles of his shoulders locked, the way his grip on the phone tightened, the flex of his jaw as he gave sharp nods and quick mumbles. Then he turned around. My heart skipped a beat, and I couldn't tear my gaze away quickly enough. My brow raised when I saw that he was walking towards me. He handed the phone to me, his expression unreadable. "Sarah," voice clipped, "it's Celeste. She wants to speak with you." My stomach dropped. Celeste? I didn't know what surprised me more, the fact that it had been Celeste on the line and he'd looked so uncomfortable, or that my sister wanted to talk to me. His fingers brushed mine as I took it, and for a fleeting instant, I thought I saw a storm gathering behind his eyes again. But then he stepped back, arms folding across his chest, as if insulating himself from whatever was coming. I stared at the phone in my hand, bracing myself for— What? I didn't know. I pressed the phone to my ear. "Celeste?" Her voice came through soft, almost sweet, which in itself put me on edge. "Sarah? I thought it best to call Kieran since I knew you didn't bring your phone to the island." My chest tightened. "What do you want?" She exhaled heavily. "It's Mom. She's been hospitalized. The doctors say it's serious. You should come." My grip on the phone slackened. "Hospitalized? Yes." Celeste's tone sharpened, though she cloaked it quickly in what sounded like feigned sympathy. "I wouldn't be calling otherwise. I thought, despite everything, you'd want to know. She's still your mother, isn't she?" Conflicting emotions tore through me at once. Anger, still simmering, because, more than my mother, Margaret Lockwood was the woman who had turned her back on me, who had stood idly while I was treated like gum under everyone's shoe, who had chosen convenience and appearances over her own daughter. And grief, unspoken and unacknowledged, because no matter how many ways she failed me, she was still my mother. I'd already lost my father without reconciliation, without goodbye. "Thank you for telling me," I managed stiffly. Celeste's pause was deliberate, letting the silence weigh down the line before she spoke again. "Of course, she's been asking for you. I hope you'll come quickly. For her sake." I'll come, I whispered, surprising myself with the certainty in my voice. Good. And because she was Celeste Lockwood, she couldn't resist adding a petty, spiteful barb. Besides, I think you've spent enough time on that island playing house with my man. It's time to come home now, don't you think? I hung up without another word. I lowered the phone slowly. My breath felt shallow, like the air itself resisted entering my lungs. What happened? Daniel asked, his little face creased with concern. Kieran's jaw flexed. He reached for the phone, pocketing it without a word. His shoulders looked even heavier than moments ago, as though Celeste's venom clung to him too. I forced a smile that trembled at the edges. Grandma Margaret is sick. She's in the hospital. Daniel blinked, processing, then looked up at me with those earnest eyes that always saw more than I wanted him to. What happened? I shook my head. I'm not sure yet. I'll have to see for myself. He stiffened. You're leaving? The guilt grew, a choking grip around my throat. Oh, baby. His mouth turned down, uncertain. But what about our adventure? The ache in my chest spread, sharp as glass. I reached across the table, cupping his cheek. We'll still have it, just a little later, all right? We have our whole lives to have adventures. He nodded, though disappointment lingered in his eyes. Kieran cleared his throat. We'll leave tomorrow. His tone was businesslike, stripped of any softness. I turned to him. You don't have to come with me. A muscle in his jaw ticked. I'm going with you. That was it. Final, no room for argument. And just like that, the decision was made. We were going back. Daniel sat quietly on my bed as I packed. I wanted to say something, help him feel better about my sudden departure, but I was too busy slipping in and out of my own head. Images flickered unbidden, my father's final moments, the chance I never got to receive his forgiveness, to be his daughter. Would I lose my mother the same way? Would I carry another regret carved into my bones forever? Yet beneath the guilt, a darker voice whispered, Why should you go at all? This was the woman who looked through me as though I were invisible, who let Celeste bask in all the sunlight while I was left to rot in the shadows, who, just a couple of weeks ago, had publicly shamed me for Celeste's benefit. Did she deserve my presence now, when her body was weak and her pride fractured? I pressed my palms to my eyes. The ghost of an instinct stirred restlessly inside me, urging compassion. A mother was still a mother, and if I didn't go and she died, I knew the regret would eat me alive. Mom? I snapped back to the present, dropping a shirt into my suitcase. Daniel's lips were pursed as he looked at my suitcase. Yes, love? You're really going, aren't you? His voice cracked, raw and small. I nodded, heart twisting. I have to, sweetheart. He studied me, searching my face for what I didn't know, then softly. You'll come back, right? Tears burned the backs of my eyes. I pushed my suitcase aside and crouched, pulling him into my arms. Always. No matter where I go, I'll always come back to you. You're my home, Daniel, remember? He clung to me fiercely, his little fingers digging into my shirt. For a moment, I almost broke, almost told Kieran to fly back alone while I stayed here, where my son's laughter was. But grief and duty are cruel twins, and they drove me onward. When I finally let Daniel go, his face was blotchy with unshed tears, but he gave me a brave nod. Okay, then go. Take care of Grandma. But don't forget what I said, Mom. I want you to put yourself first. I want you to be happy. His words pierced me deeper than he knew. Celeste's pove. Was that seriously necessary? I'm not sure I know what you mean. Ethan stood at the entrance to the living room with his arms crossed, the early morning light slicing behind him, turning his expression into a judgmental silhouette. Calling Sarah, asking her to cut her visit with Daniel short. His voice was low, dangerously even, the voice he used to lead our pack as alpha, a voice he rarely used with me. What of it? I smoothed my hair back, keeping my tone breezy. Mom's in the hospital, remember? Or do you no longer care? He stepped in closer, and my grip on my phone tightened. I had only just ended the call with Kieran, and even now, the memory of his voice lingered in my ears, gravelly, reluctant, guarded. Like every single fucking time we'd spoken while he was on that island. Oh, I care, Ethan said, watching me with a brow raised, his unnerving eyes tracking mine. Which is why I rushed down to the hospital when I heard the news, and the doctors told us her condition isn't serious. She fainted, that's all. Stress, exhaustion, grief from father's death. You made it sound like she's on her deathbed. not currently receiving a complimentary massage in the hospital's wellness wing. My pulse spiked, though I tilted my chin higher, pretending I wasn't rattled. Whatever. I'm just giving Sarah the chance to be a good daughter and to come to her mother's aid in her time of distress. Why is that so wrong? Ethan's eyes narrowed and a flash of irritation shot through me. What the fuck was he putting me under a microscope for? Wasn't he the one always lamenting that he missed when we were a close-knit family? As if such a thing had ever existed with the Lockwoods. Admit it, Celeste, he said flatly. You just wanted to pull Sarah off that island. I scoffed. Why would I want to do that? You tell me. She hasn't seen Daniel in months, and now she's coming back for a hyperbole. I rolled my eyes. Sue me for being worried, Ethan. I was just trying to be a good daughter and sister. What's so wrong with that? You sure you weren't just trying to separate her and Kieran? I froze. Heat crawled up my neck. They've been on that island long enough. I snapped before I could stop myself. Do you even know what could happen? She's there alone with him, alone with my Kieran. My voice cracked around his name, and I disguised it as anger. You think Sarah's above scheming, above seducing, after everything she's already done? Ethan pinched the bridge of his nose. God, Celeste. What? I demanded. His hand dropped, his eyes narrowing. Do you hear yourself? That's paranoia talking, not reason. Sarah and Kieran are divorced. The only thing keeping them together is... Daniel. Yes, so everyone keeps saying. I crossed my legs and folded my arms, trying to keep my body from trembling. Ethan's silence accused me harder than any words could. I hated when he looked at me like that, as though he saw straight through me to the places I kept locked tight. I wished my brother would just fucking leave. Go see Mom in the hospital or go back to his rude, abrasive, smug fucking. You didn't call because you care about Mom or her relationship with Sarah, he said pointedly, and then repeated, You called to get Sarah off that island. Don't lie to me, Celeste. You've hated her since we were children. I laughed, brittle and sharp, hoping it sounded like amusement instead of the defensive crack of glass. Hate is a strong word. I don't hate her. The lie tasted bitter. I loathed Sarah. Fine, maybe you don't hate her, but you sure treat her abysmally. Ever since we were kids, and now it's like you have it out for her, an agenda of sorts. Quite frankly, Celeste, it's exhausting to watch. The words hit like a slap. I reeled back, but pride forced me to sneer. Oh, so now you're her defender? Is that it? Did Maya get to you? Has she whispered enough poison in your ear that you're blind to your own blood? The mention of his snappish mate lit a spark in him. His jaw tightened, his wolf hovering just beneath his skin. I knew that look. It was the one he wore when someone insulted his pride. I guess in this instant it extended to her. You will respect my mate. His words were a command, his voice like iron. I scoffed, even as a tremor shook my stomach. My brother rarely used the force of his alpha aura on me, and that fact that he would do so now made me want to fling a couch at his head. Respect her? That acerbic little bitch? She's nothing, Ethan. Nothing compared to you, and she's not worthy of you. She came out of nowhere and has been dragging you around by the balls like you're her fucking purse poodle. What's worse, she's friends with Sarah. That already throws her entire fucking character into question. High chance she's also a fucking manipulative, seductive bitch. Ethan's growl thundered in the room before I finished speaking, and my words died in my throat with a shaky whimper. Enough, Celeste. He seemed to grow several inches, that towering over me, his eyes a dark, stormy vortex, more ferocious alpha than my older brother. Don't you ever speak about Maya like that again, he growled. She's my mate, my fucking everything. I will build a life with her, and she will become my Luna. You will learn to respect her, or... He shook his head, his fists clenching and unclenching at his side, like he was holding himself back from hitting me. There's no alternative. The fury in his voice, the rage in his eyes, startled me. For a second, it felt like I was staring at a stranger. What happened to my big brother who worshipped the ground I walked on, who cradled me like an egg, who would rather pull his own eye out than see me cry? You've changed, he muttered, shaking his head, just as that exact same thought ran through my mind about him. Or maybe... no. He shook his head and took a step back. The tension in his shoulders eased, and the storm pulled back to reveal an expression that was even worse. My brother looked at me the way I looked at him, like he was seeing a stranger. Maybe you've always been like this, and I just refused to see it. Something hot and acidic surged up my throat, my nails dug into my arms. This was going too fucking far. Don't you dare say that, I hissed, my voice wobbling. You know what I went through. 10 years ago, you know the pain I had to endure, the humiliation, the sheer betrayal. Everyone owes me for that, everyone. Sarah? Kieran. Sarah, fucking Serafina. Ethan's eyes darkened, not with sympathy, but with something colder. Detached. Yes, you were wronged, Ethan said carefully, but you can't keep using that as a shield, Celeste. Like you said, it's been 10 years, but you're still holding on to all the anger and pain like it happened yesterday. You're the one who refuses to heal. For 10 years, we've given you everything, money, protection, support, and what have you done with it? Hidden, refused to come home unless it suited you, nursed your grudge until it became this big, ugly monster that's consuming you. His words pierced straight into my chest, and for the first time in my life, I hated my big brother. I hated him for not unconditionally standing by my side. I hated him for listening to his mate and regurgitating her words back at me. But most of all, I hated him because he was right. And that truth made me want to claw my skin off. You think you're the only one owed something, he pressed, softer now, almost pleading. But the world doesn't work that way. And Sarah... Don't say her name, I shrieked. The sound tore from me raw, my body trembling as though I'd split myself open. Ethan flinched, but I didn't care. You don't understand, I spat. You will never understand until you find Maya in bed with your so-called sibling. Kieran is mine. He was mine before Sarah ever came crawling into the picture. She stole him from me. She stole everything from me. Gods, Ethan whispered, horror widening his eyes. Listen to yourself. Do you hear the madness in your voice? I lunged toward him, finger stabbing the air. Get out! Celeste, get out! My throat burned, my eyes blurred. You don't know anything. You think your perfect little mate has opened your eyes? She's blinded you, just like Sarah blinded everyone else. But I see the truth. I always have, and I will never, ever let Sarah take anything from me ever again. The room fell into a taut silence after my scream, my chest heaving, my skin slick with sweat. Ethan lingered for a moment, disappointment and lingering anger etched deep in the set of his mouth, then turned away. The door closed behind him with a finality that felt like abandonment. I sank onto the couch, shaking. My eyes fell to my wrist, to the tattoo inked there, the two wolves circling themselves under the full moon. I'd chosen that symbol with Kieran's name burned on my tongue, branded on my fucking heart. My fingers traced the lines, the memory of that night, that vow, sealing my resolve all over again. Kieran was mine, always had been, always would be. And I would claim him before anyone had a chance to discover what I was hiding, no matter what it took. And whoever stood in my way, Sarah, Maya, Ethan, even fate itself, I would make certain they never dared again. Serafina's Pove. The hospital smelled like antiseptic and boiled linen, a sharp, sterile scent that clawed at my nerves the moment I stepped through the sliding glass doors and was bombarded with painful memories of the last time I was called to a parent's hospital room. Kieran tentatively laid a hand on my elbow when I halted just a few feet from the entrance, trying to catch my breath. Sarah, his voice was uncharacteristically soft, unnervingly kind. Do you want me to go in with you? I shook my head, stepping out of his reach. We'd spent the entire trip back in our tentative truce bubble, and I didn't want him to think that now that we were back in California, it had evaporated. As much as I didn't want to face the prospect of my possibly dying mother alone, I didn't want to have to lean on Kieran, especially since he wasn't there to lean on when my father died. I'm fine, I said quietly, before heading towards the nurse's station. 5 minutes later, the elevator doors dinged open on the top floor. For all the frantic urgency with which Kieran and I had left the island, I half expected to find my mom's room barricaded by doctors, machines hissing, nurses rushing in and out with grave expressions. Instead, I found her sitting upright in bed, propped on too many pillows, her hair neatly combed, a pale silk robe drawn around her shoulders, a glass of cucumber water in her freshly manicured hands. Her pulse monitor ticked steadily, unhurried, as though mocking my own racing heartbeat. My lungs loosened at once. Relief flooded me, so sharp it almost left me dizzy. She wasn't dying, she wasn't even close. Hell, her color looked better than mine, and I'd just come back from the fucking Caribbean. And just like that, suspicion coiled up in the hollow of my stomach. Of course, Celeste. I should have known better than to dance to her strings. When had we ever had an interaction that didn't have an ulterior motive? How could I have so blindly and naively believed her? Still, a sliver of doubt gnawed at me as my mother's eyes lifted from the book in her lap to meet mine. Her expression, genuine surprise widening her gaze, wasn't the calculated performance I would have expected if she'd been in on Celeste's little scheme. "Sarah?" Her voice caught, halfway between disbelief and something softer, almost tentative. The sound pressed against a bruise inside me I didn't want to examine. I was worried, I said, the words tumbling out sharper than I intended. "Celeste said you were hospitalized. We came straight from the island." Her gaze softened, and she gently set her glass down on her bedside table next to a bowl of fruit salad. "You came? For me?" I exhaled slowly and stepped closer. "How are you feeling?" She smoothed her robe as though embarrassed by the attention. "A spell, that's all. The doctors insist it's nothing serious. Exhaustion, a touch of dehydration, age creeping in where I wish it wouldn't." Relief pricked through me again, but it came tangled with bitterness. I had left Daniel's laughter and love behind on sunlit sand for this. Celeste's ploys never failed to rob me of peace, but she might have well and truly crossed the line this time. Margaret gestured to the chair beside her bed. "Sit with me, Serafina." I hesitated, but courtesy, or maybe exhaustion of my own, guided me into the seat. The silence between us pressed tight, awkward in its restraint. My mother glanced at me, then away, as if she didn't know where to begin. "And Daniel?" she asked at last, her voice gentler than I remembered. "How's my boy?" My chest eased despite myself. I could never hold ugly emotions where Daniel was concerned. "He's thriving. He's grown taller these past weeks, I swear. And he never tires of the beach, collecting shells, building fortresses in the sand, surfing the waves." I caught myself before I rambled on. She didn't need the litany of small joys I hoarded like rare pearls. My mother and I didn't do small talk like this. It was too strange and uncomfortable to continue. Her lips curved faintly. "He always did remind me of your father, sprightly and venturesome." She chuckled softly. "You could plop the man in an ice cave in the middle of nowhere and return to find a glacial wonderland." I froze. It wasn't so much the mention of my father, but how she'd done it, like we were a normal family reminiscing, like we were united in our grief, like the husband she'd loved and the father who loathed me were somehow the same person. "Maybe," I murmured. Another silence stretched, brittle as sugar glass. I folded my hands tightly in my lap, keeping my tone neutral. "I'm glad you're all right." I glanced at the door. I should leave now, I thought. Before we ran out of amicable topics and delved into dangerous territory that would no doubt end with me carrying shards of my heart out of the room. My mother's eyes lingered on me, searching for something I didn't want to give. And then, with a sudden burst of determination that reminded me of the Margaret who once commanded an entire pack as fearsome Luna, she said we should all sit down together soon, have dinner, as a family. I blinked. As a family. She nodded, and I could feel us slowly edging towards that line, the one that separated strained civility from blatant hostility. "You, Ethan?" I could see the line clearly, big and bold. "Celeste?" Yep, stepping over the line, and Lucian Reed. Line effectively crossed, barrier erected behind. Bye-bye, civility. The name landed like ice water poured down my spine. Lucian. I stared at her, dumbstruck. Had she really just... My mom, seemingly oblivious to the storm she had unleashed, continued matter-of-factly, "It's time, don't you think? To put appearances in order. People have already started talking about the two of you, and we wouldn't want another occurrence like last time, right? So we have to do this right. It's awe-inspiring enough that after, everything, that someone of Lucian Reed's status would actually..." She might have trailed off, or the white noise building in my head momentarily drowned out her words, her phrasing. Saints above, her phrasing. As though Lucian was a benefactor I ought to thank properly. I should be grateful someone of his standing would deign to bother with me. Heat rose in my chest, rushing too fast for me to contain. Enough. The word cracked from me before I could stop it. Margaret blinked. I came here because, foolishly, I was worried. Daniel was worried, I said, my voice shaking but hard. Because common decency, stupid, misplaced duty, demanded it. But don't mistake that for anything more. My life, my choices, the people in it, aren't yours to judge, or tidy up, or parade for appearances. You forfeited that right a long time ago. So no, I will not be having any ridiculous sham of a dinner with any ridiculous sham of a family. And you can be sure that as far as anyone bearing the Lockwood name is concerned, Lucian Reed lives on the other side of the fucking planet. The words left me trembling, the air burning in my throat. For a moment, all I saw in my mother's face was shock. And then, something sharper. A flicker of dejection, pain carved into fine lines around her mouth and eyes. It pierced me against my will. My heart faltered, guilt pricking at me with familiar claws. Had I gone too far? Had I just buried the line of fragile truce in mountains of ice? But then memory rushed in. Every time I begged silently for her to look at me, and she'd turned away. How she had adored Celeste's every whim and left me to scavenge scraps of affection. How she'd stood on that stage and asked me to dance like a puppet for Celeste, the puppet master. No, I would not be swayed. Not this time. I stood abruptly, gathering my composure like armor. Daniel will be glad to hear you're well. Her lips parted as if to protest, but I was already reaching for my bag. Sarah. My steps faltered at the sound of her voice. I didn't mean it like that, she said quietly. I never quite find the right words with you, do I? She punctuated the sentence with a self-deprecatory chuckle like she expected me to turn around and comfort her, to let her know that it was okay to keep hammering in the nail she'd embedded in my heart years ago. But I am glad you came. It means a lot, Sarah. Thank you. I closed my eyes. For a heartbeat, I let myself imagine that sentence. This entire conversation had come a decade earlier when it might have mattered. But it was too late, and now it just stung. The past was set in stone, and piling flowers over trash didn't curb the smell. It just made it worse. When I opened my eyes again, the sterile walls pressed cold and unforgiving around me. Rest well, I managed, my voice flat. And then I turned, my heels clicking too loud on the linoleum as I walked for the door. The corridor outside buzzed faintly with life, nurses chatting, monitors beeping, someone's laughter ringing from down the hall. I focused on the rhythm of my steps, anything to drown the white noise still echoing faintly in my ears. But as I rounded the corner, the air snagged in my lungs. There, not 10 paces away, stood Celeste. And Kieran. Her body was pressed flush against his, her arms looped around his neck, his tightly gripping her waist, their lips locked in a passionate kiss. Serafina's pove. For a moment, the floor tilted underneath me, and coupled with the sour and heavy remnants of the conversation with my mother clinging to me, I thought I was going to be sick all over the spotless linoleum floor. I closed my eyes, took 2 long calming breaths, and opened them, to the same nauseating sight. Celeste and Kieran, entwined like lovers who hadn't seen each other in years, her hands hooked behind his neck, his arms anchored firmly around her waist. My fingers curled into fists, nails biting crescents into the flesh of my palm. The thing is, it wasn't even the fact that Kieran was kissing Celeste. It was the fucking kiss itself. The way he gripped her and pressed her into him, the expert, hungry way his lips glided over hers. The way it made me think of all the other times Kieran had kissed me, and I felt so absolutely, completely fucking stupid. My stomach roiled again, and it felt like I was back on that stupid yacht, battling seasickness. Except this time, the idea of throwing myself overboard to the mercy of the sharks felt much more palatable than staying on the ship. But amidst the gut-wrenching feeling of betrayal, I didn't want to examine too closely, came something like relief. Because I'd been right. Kieran was exactly who I thought he was. His attentiveness and care on the island were a charade. His kisses and touches were farces. If I'd been a lesser woman, if I didn't have a decade of cold indifference as reference, I might have been fooled into thinking he really cared about me, that he truly wanted me. But in the end, the truth would always prevail. Kieran would always choose Celeste. I scoffed, and that realization was oddly liberating. I never had to bother about the confusing storm in my head about Kieran, because ultimately he had never been mine, and he would never be. It was that simple. The sound I made must have been louder than I intended, because at that moment, Kieran's eyes fluttered open, then blew wide as his gaze caught mine over Celeste's shoulders. He shoved Celeste back so abruptly she stumbled, lips still parted, cheeks flushed. I might have laughed at the comical shock on her face if I wasn't too busy trying to keep the coffee and bagel I'd had on the plane down. "Sarah," Kieran's voice cracked, caught somewhere between surprise and alarm. Something like guilt flittered in his eyes. His gaze swept over me in an instant, lingering on my eyes. "You're crying." "Was I?" I held my hand up to the corners of my eyes and felt the moisture there. Interesting. Had that happened in my mother's room or after I stepped out? "What happened?" Kieran pressed. "Did Margaret? Is it serious?" Concern. His tone dripped with it, as though he was still the Kieran who fussed over me when I was seasick and sucked snake venom out of my injury and carried me up the stairs and cooked for me, and a bitter laugh clawed its way out of my throat before I could stop it. I blinked back what felt like another wave of hot tears, refusing to examine the dull ache pounding against my ribcage. "Sarah?" I jerked away from his touch so violently I almost lost my footing, but the memory of what had happened the last time I tripped around Kieran burned so brightly in my mind, my body instinctively righted itself. "Why don't you ask Celeste?" I snapped, tearing my gaze to my sister, who leaned against the wall, her arms crossed, watching the exchange with glacial blue eyes. "Celeste," I hissed, my voice as sharp as glass, "is it serious? Did Mom, who looked surprised as fuck to see me in her hospital room, really ask for me?" Celeste's face tightened, but she rolled her eyes, dismissive and theatrical. "Are you serious right now, Sarah?" "Excuse me?" "I called you because I figured you'd be worried, but you're mad because Mom's fine?" I blinked, scoffing incredulously. "I'm not mad because Mom's fine. I'm glad she's fine. I'm mad because you—" "I guess it's not that hard to understand, though." She shrugged. My eyes narrowed. What the fuck does that mean? Her lips curled into that saccharine smile that had always hidden poison. "You resent everyone. You always have. And after ruining everything 10 years ago, it must gut you to see everyone happy and healthy, right? You just can't stand it, that Mom is healthy and that I'm happy with the man who was mine all along. Your selfish, callous heart can't." Muscle, memory. My palm connected with her cheek before I'd even fully processed the thought. The sharp crack echoed the hospital hallway, drawing curious glances. Celeste's head snapped to the side, her hair falling loose around her face. "Don't you dare," I hissed, my voice trembling with fury. After dealing with actual snake venom on the island, I wasn't much interested in Celeste's special brand. "Don't you dare spill all that bullshit about me again. I've had just about enough of that." Her hand shot up immediately, eyes blazing as she moved to strike me back. But Kieran caught her wrist midair, his jaw set. "Enough," he snapped, his voice carrying unquestionable authority. "Not here. Not outside Margaret's room." Celeste yanked against his hold, her eyes wild with indignation. "You're defending her? After she just—" Kieran's grip only tightened. "This isn't the time or place." My gaze cut to him, cold as ice. "It's okay, Kieran. You can drop the act now that we're back in the real world. I know you don't really care." His eyes flickered, and he actually looked genuinely wounded. That tiny fracture almost unsettled me. Almost. But Celeste pounced on it. "Care?" she repeated, her tone sharp. Her eyes darted between us, narrowing with suspicion. "What's going on? Did something happen between you two on the island?" The silence that followed was suffocating. My lips pressed into a thin line. I would be damned if I opened my mouth to repeat any of the illicit things that had happened between me and Kieran in that villa. He, too, apparently had the same sentiment. His jaw ticked, his gaze darting away unfocused. And Celeste? Oh, Celeste knew exactly what our silence meant. Her face twisted in rage. She lunged forward, grabbing my wrist with her free hand in a bruising grip. "Don't you dare," she seethed. Her voice was low, venomous. "Don't you dare try anything. I finally have the chance to be engaged to Kieran. You think I'm going to sit back this time and watch you take what's mine? I swear, if you ruin this for me again, Serafina, I will destroy you and everything you hold dear." I stared down at her hand, clamped over mine. What's mine? Did she ever see Kieran as anything other than a possession? Gods, she sounded like I'd stolen her favorite toy, not the man she was supposed to love and cherish. Whatever. I didn't give a flying fuck about the dynamics of their relationship. I slowly wrenched myself free. "If he matters to you that much," I said, my voice dropping to a mocking lilt, "then you should be careful not to provoke me further." She blinked, jerking her head back. Unable to stop myself, I went in for the kill. "Because if you push me hard enough, Celeste, maybe I'll decide to steal him away just for the fun of it." I threw a glance at Kieran, making sure Celeste could see the suggestive look in my eyes. After all, I already did it once before, and trust me, Han, doing it again is not as hard as one would have thought. Her gasp was immediate, loud, strangled. Kieran stiffened as his wide-eyed gaze took me in, his expression nothing short of shock. "Sarah." His voice was raw, as if my words had rattled him, as if he wasn't the one shoving me against walls and counters and asking me not to kiss him back because he couldn't help himself. Celeste screeched, the sound so sharp it turned the heads of passing nurses. She surged forward, nails curling, clearly intent on tearing at my face. Kieran caught her again, pinning her arms to her sides as she thrashed. "Stop it, Celeste," his voice thundered, his alpha aura rumbling through the air. "She's just venting? Can't you see that?" "Venting?" Celeste shrieked. "She's threatening me? She's planning to ruin everything again, and you're just standing there? Fuck that, you're letting her." I stood rooted, breathing hard, the adrenaline burning in my veins. My hands shook, still tingling from the satisfying contact of Celeste's cheek. I half wanted Kieran to let her go. Let her come at me. Words hadn't been enough to get my messages through to her. Maybe if I body-checked her against the wall and gave her a concussion, she'd know to stay the fuck away from me. And then, Serafina. The voice was cool, measured, familiar. It blasted away the heat and anger rushing through my veins, replacing it with a warm, reassuring comfort I only ever experienced in one person's presence. Lucian, Serafina's Pove. I turned, and there he was, emerging from the other end of the hallway, almost like a scene from a movie. His eyes swept over our own scene, a flushed Celeste clawing against Kieran's hold, shrieking like a banshee, Kieran himself caught between restraint and agitation, and me standing apart, my pulse racing, my chest heaving. And then those eyes landed fully on me, sharp, shielding, protective in a way that almost made my knees weak. Without hesitation, he closed the distance and placed himself squarely in front of me. The air around us shifted like a storm rolling in, adding a different kind of tension I wasn't sure I minded. I instinctively shifted closer and let myself lean into the solace and safety Lucian's presence promised. I took a deep breath, and his scent had the same effect on me as an aromatherapy oil: relaxation, tension, and stress relief. "Is there a problem here?" His tone was deceptively polite, but the bite laced underneath was unmistakable. Celeste froze, her chest heaving, her lips parting soundlessly. She was disoriented for maybe 2 seconds before more acid spewed out. "What the fuck are you doing here?" she hissed, her eyes like 2 blue flames. Lucian's shoulders tensed only slightly, but he answered coolly, "I came to pick my girlfriend up from her trip." Girlfriend. Warmth pooled in my stomach, and I had to bite my lip to hide my instinctive smile. No one else was as pleased as I was, though. Celeste actually, honest to goodness, snarled, and Kieran was in serious danger of shattering his molars with how hard he was grinding his teeth. "Go ahead, collect the shameless bitch," she growled. "Better she cling to you like the blood-sucking leech she is, and stay the fuck away from Kieran." Heat clawed up my throat, the sting of her words sharper than I wanted to admit. Before I could even form a retort, Lucian's voice cut in, low and edged with steel. "Watch your tongue, Celeste, especially when you're speaking about my future Luna." The corridor seemed to still. I could almost hear the collective gasp from the passers-by and nurses not so subtly eavesdropping on our little scene. Even Kieran's hands slackened where they held Celeste back. Lucian didn't flinch under the shock that rippled through the space. He took a single step forward, enough that Celeste had to press against Kieran and tilt her chin up to look at him. If men fall for her charms, that isn't her fault. The difference is, I'm lucky enough that she's chosen me. And I don't take kindly to anyone insulting what's mine. The words landed with a weight I felt in my bones. What's mine? Maybe it was hypocritical of me, but the possessive words sounded different when Lucian said them. I didn't feel like a toy he owned. I felt like something precious. loved and cherished. Celeste's laugh was brittle, scorn layered over her visible unease. You must be mad, Lucian. Her? A pathetic, wolfless cast-off? Even her husband's pack did not accept her as Luna, and you want to bring such a disease into yours? You'll be the laughingstock of the entire world. My nails dug into my palms, and for a split second, I couldn't tell if the twisting in my chest came from her venom or the echo of truth it hit against. But before I could spiral, Kieran's voice rang sharp, alpha command threading his tone. Enough, Celeste. She turned to him, gaping as if he had struck her. Lucian didn't even glance at Kieran. His gaze stayed locked on Celeste, colder than an Arctic wind. You might want to save your laughter, Celeste. Because unlike your family and her two undeserving former packs, I've always known Serafina was born for more than you could ever imagine. She will make an excellent Luna. His lips curved into an indubitably confident smile. You'll see soon enough. And just like that, he turned to me. Hey, he smiled. I breathed, stunned. Ready? I gave the slightest of nods, and his hand slid to the small of my back. It fit there so naturally, and I couldn't resist leaning in. He steered me firmly past Kieran and Celeste, their stunned expressions playing in my peripheral vision. Despite it all, a smile danced on my lips as we walked out of the hospital, the silent satisfaction of leaving them behind humming like wine in my veins. By the time we reached the parking lot, the tension that had wound me tight finally began to unravel, only for Lucian to catch me off guard all over again. He spun me gently but decisively, pressing me back against the cool metal of his car. Lucian, what? My gasp was swallowed by his mouth. My hands went to his chest instinctively, half to push, half to hold on. But his lips moved against mine with an intensity I'd never felt from Lucian before. Fierce, claiming, as though he was floating away and kissing me was the only way to anchor himself. My fingers curled into his shirt, anchoring myself as I tilted my head up to accept his kiss. The warmth from his arrival earlier spread from my stomach through my whole body, along with a tingling that had me pressing closer, wanting more. But then he pulled away, laying his forehead against mine. His breathing was harsh and unsteady, his eyes closed. I'd never seen Lucian like this before, almost like he'd momentarily lost the reins of the control that so firmly leashed him. What's wrong, Lucian? I panted softly. He pulled back just far enough for me to see the storm in his eyes as he opened them. Tell me you weren't actually thinking of going back to him. My pulse stumbled. What? Kieran, he ground out, his mouth tightening like the name hurt coming out. I heard what you said to Celeste, and I know you could have anyone you wanted, but... A laugh escaped me, breathless and sharp. Are you jealous? The muscle in his jaw ticked, but he didn't deny it. Yes. His voice dropped lower, rawer. Damn right I am. I've spent the past few days telling myself to trust you, that you'd never let him crawl back into your heart after everything. But the thought of you with him, alone on that island, for days. He broke off, his hand sliding up to cup my jaw, thumb stroking just beneath my ear. I missed you, Sarah, more than I thought was possible. My amusement faded away, and something inside me softened. Guilt and sweetness tangled until I didn't know which pulled harder. Lucian, I whispered, cupping his face. The stubble on his jaw lightly grazed my palm, and I couldn't resist placing a chaste kiss on his lips. I only said those things back there to rile Celeste. Kieran is my past, my painful, lonely past. I never want to go back. I might have momentarily wavered, I might have lost my damn mind on that island, but I could see everything clearly now. Kieran belonged with his Celeste, and I belonged with Lucian. Mine? I shook my head. I'm not going to go back. I'm focusing on my future now. My voice trembled slightly. And if you'll have me, I want that future with you. Lucian's hand tightened at my waist, a rush of something like relief breaking across his features before he bent down again, kissing me with a gentleness that quickly melted into fire. The kiss deepened, heat winding low in my stomach. His lips demanded more this time, coaxing and taking all at once. I could feel an edge of dominance in him, a dark edge he rarely let show, but instead of frightening me, it sent sparks racing under my skin. It wasn't tender or hesitant or nice like our other kisses. It was demanding, urgent, unrestrained. I loved it. My palms flattened against his chest, and I could feel the thunderous roar of his heart as his body pressed closer, pinning me between him and the car. The world outside blurred until the sharp chime of my phone broke through. We stilled, breathing hard, foreheads pressed together. Lucian muttered something vicious under his breath before digging in his pocket for his phone. He rolled his eyes when he saw the caller ID. "Of course," he muttered. Then he handed it to me. "For you." I was trembling so much I almost dropped the phone twice before I finally answered the call and brought it up to my ear. "Sarah fucking Fina." I almost dropped Lucian's phone a third time as I winced, holding it away. Lucian chuckled, his irritation giving way to fondness. "She missed you, if you couldn't already tell." I laughed, bringing the phone back to my ear. "Hi, Maya." "I fucking missed you," she yelled. My grin split my face in two. It was a little unbelievable and a lot overwhelming that my absence had had such an effect on Lucian and Maya. I wasn't used to people wanting me around, let alone missing me when I was gone. "I missed you too," I told Maya, emotion clogging my throat. "I have a welcome back present for you," she was still shouting. I could hear bass, loud clattering, and other people yelling in the background. "Is it tinnitus?" "Ha ha!" she barked. "I missed your sarcastic ass. Tell Lucian to get that ass over here, pronto." She hung up and my hand dropped from my ear. I laughed softly, shaking my head. "Looks like I've been claimed by someone else tonight." Lucian arched a brow, lips still hovering a dangerous inch from mine. "Do I need to be jealous of her too?" I shook my head, smiling. "I have it on good authority that Maya is die-hard Team Lucian." His answering smile was slow, heated. "Good. Then she won't be mad if we keep her waiting a few minutes longer." And before I could protest, he kissed me again, hungry, unashamed, fierce. I clung to him tightly, letting every other thought fall out of my head. The world around could wait. Serafina's povey. My first clue about Maya's welcome back present should have been the fancy garment box Lucian presented me with when we stopped at my house to drop off my luggage and freshen up. Inside was a gorgeous soft cream dress that took my breath away. It was made of flowy chiffon that hugged my waist and swayed around me like water when I moved. My second clue should have been when Lucian told me to pack an overnight bag. And yet, I was still blown clean off my feet when I stepped into the lobby of the Hot Springs Hotel. "Surprise!" the OTS members shouted in unison. A burst of laughter followed as confetti rained down, sticking in my hair and glittering against my dress. I blinked rapidly, overwhelmed, until Maya came rushing toward me in a flowing teal gown that matched her bright spirit and practically glowed against her bronze skin. "Sarah!" She threw her arms around my neck, and a breathless laugh fell out of me as I hugged her tightly. "I missed you so much," I said, grinning so hard my jaw ached. She pulled back, cupping my cheeks. "Of course you did. Quite frankly, I have no idea how you survived that long without me by your side." I laughed. "I could say the same about you." She rolled her eyes, pulling me behind her into the grand hall. I looked around, my mouth dropping open slightly. "Maya, this is..." The entire hall was bathed in soft golden light. Paper lanterns floated above, glowing like captured stars. A long table was set up with food, desserts stacked on polished trays, and bottles of champagne chilling in silver buckets. Warm steam drifted from the open-air hot springs outside, perfumed with herbs and faint floral oils. The place wasn't extravagant in the cold, sterile way the previous galas and social gatherings I'd attended had been. This was warm, intimate, thoughtfully designed, and it was all for me. "Do you love it?" Maya asked breathlessly, grabbing both my hands. Her eyes sparkled as though my reaction mattered more than anything else in the world. "I had the entire thing arranged the moment Ethan told me you were coming back. The hot springs are open all night, we have the entire hotel to ourselves, and I got all your favorite foods and desserts." She hopped on her heels like she'd already gotten into the desserts and was having a sugar high. "Tell me you love it." I laughed shakily. "Maya, I don't even have words. Of course I love it. It's all so beautiful." "Not as beautiful as you," she declared with exaggerated flair, stepping back to admire me. I felt a blush creep up my cheeks. When I'd first put the dress on, I thought it was too much, too delicate for me. But now, seeing how it glowed in the golden light, how it made me feel like I belonged in this warmth, I realized that, as always, Maya was right. "I can't believe you planned all this just for me," I said softly. "I was gone a little over a week, Maya. A week, A month, it doesn't matter, she said, cupping my cheeks again. You deserve it. You spent so much of your life being cast aside and condemned, so now you have a lot of celebrating to do to make up for it. Something in my chest cracked open. I hugged her tight, burying my face in her shoulder. Thank you, I whispered, my voice thick with emotion. Well, she stroked my back lovingly. I wish I could take all the credit, but it wasn't my Amex that rented out the hotel for the night. I pulled back slightly, my brow arched. Maya smirked and nodded behind me. Lucian was still there, watching our interaction with a fond smile on his face. He looked almost too composed for the setting in his tailored dark suit, but somehow that only made him more endearing. Of course he was in on it. My smile wobbled and I blinked back tears. Thank you, I repeated softly. He slipped to my side, his hand taking mine in a quiet claim of presence. Always, Sarah. The tenderness in his eyes made my heart flutter, and it skipped a beat altogether when he drew me in closer. My eyes widened, darting pointedly to the crowd of OTS members milling about, and Maya, who was in danger of splitting her face in half with her smile. Hey, Lucian said softly, drawing me in even closer. Don't worry about them. But it was no secret that Lucian and I were friends, but we'd never been together in this capacity. I thought about the rumors Maya had told me had circulated after my birthday party, and how we would be more or less affirming them. Unless you're embarrassed to be seen with me? Lucian added with a teasing smirk. I laughed softly. If anything, it's the other way around. He chuckled and pulled me close enough that our chests were pressed together. I'm honored to be seen with you, he murmured in my ear. I want them all to know. Let them talk. A delicate chime pierced the air, and I turned to see Maya clinking a spoon against her glass, silencing the chatter. She winked at me before addressing the room. Ladies and gentlemen and everyone in between, I have an announcement, she said dramatically. Our dear Serafina has been through storms. Most of us can relate because we've been through storms of our own, and she's still here, standing taller than ever, arguably one of our most promising trainees. But that's not all. Tonight, she and Lucian have something they'd like to share. My eyes widened. Maya. Don't give me that look, she hissed quietly. It's time. Lucian only chuckled, clearly in on the scheme. He turned to me, lifting a brow. Shall we? My pulse skittered. This was more than closeness and letting people speculate. A part of me still wanted to hide, to keep this fragile new happiness tucked close. But when I met Lucian's gaze, steady, reassuring, utterly mine, I felt courage bloom, so I nodded. He wrapped an arm around my waist, pulling me gently but firmly against him. We're together, he announced, his deep voice carrying easily across the room. She is mine, as I am hers. The crowd erupted. Cheers, whistles, applause. Someone shouted, Finally! And another, About time! And then in front of everyone, Lucian bent his head and kissed me. It wasn't the fierce, demanding kiss of the parking lot earlier. This was sweet, unhurried, tender. His lips brushed mine like a vow, and the room spun with light and laughter around us. I smiled into it. For once, I didn't care who was watching. Let them talk. And they did talk, in the best way. For the first time in my life, I was the topic of conversation, and it did make me want to curl up in a ball under a table and cry. Maya dragged me from group to group, proudly introducing me like I hadn't already met most of them, insisting that tonight was about me being welcomed properly. I found myself laughing with fellow trainees who recounted training mishaps, getting technique tips from other trainers, clinking glasses with healers who promised to teach me their herb blends, and joining in conversations about favorite foods, movies, and random OTS gossip. Everywhere I turned, someone smiled at me. Not mockingly, not with suspicion, just acceptance. Quite frankly, it was the best party ever. As the night went on, I sank into the warmth like sinking into a hot spring. I let myself breathe without the shadow of Kieran or Celeste pressing in. Their voices, their judgments, all the drama of the last week, they felt 1,000 miles away. Lucian never strayed far from me. Sometimes his hand found the small of my back, other times our shoulders brushed in passing. Each touch was grounding, reminding me that I wasn't alone anymore, that I was chosen and not in the twisted, cruel way fate had once forced me into with Kieran. I caught Maya's eye across the room at one point. She grinned at me, mouthing, "You're glowing." Maybe I was. I thought of the Lockwood and Blackthorn galas, of polished marble floors and ballrooms where I'd stood at the edges, ignored at best, shunned at worst. The contrast nearly brought me to tears. Because here, in a rented hot spring hotel filled with music, chatter, and too many desserts, I felt more at home than I ever had in those cold palaces. I thought of Daniel, too. How he would love the steam rising off the water, how he would splash to his heart's content and laugh and ask for 2 slices of cake at once. An ache cleaved between the happiness bubbling up in my chest. I hated that I'd had to leave him so soon. Hated how quickly it seemed my life had reset without him in it. As amazing as my new friends were, as liberating as new love felt, I knew that I could never truly be complete, never truly feel at home without my son. But it was hard to dwell on the missing piece of me when the other pieces were larger than life and filling me with more delight than guilt. And maybe that was the real gift of tonight. Not forgetting the missing pieces, not pretending the wounds didn't exist, but realizing that love, happiness in all their forms, was still possible. That I could be both broken and healing, grieving and glowing. Serafina's Povee. The hotel was entirely ours for the night. The steam-kissed air drifting from the outdoor pools, the faint notes of sandalwood and mineral water, the low hum of chatter and laughter echoing down the cedar-paneled halls, it all belonged to us. At some point, I began to wonder if this was less about welcoming me back and more about a mini vacation for OTS. I loved it either way. As the party began to wind down and people began to retreat to their rooms or out into the pools and spas, I wondered what the rest of the night would hold in store for me. I thought Lucian might ask if I wanted to stay with him. The way his hand lingered a fraction too long on my lower back as we walked toward the elevators told me he was debating it. His eyes, warm but restrained, flicked toward me more than once, like he wanted to speak but was waiting for the right moment. My pulse skittered with every stolen glance, my skin prickling with anticipation. Staying with him overnight was a big step, especially only after one date, but I didn't think I would say no if he asked. But before he even could, Maya popped up between us like a whirlwind in silk pajamas, looping her arm through mine. "Sorry, Lucian," she declared mock sternly. "I let you pick her up and have her for the party, but I'm claiming Sarah tonight. It's strictly a girls' night." Lucian's brow rose ever so slightly, but the corners of his mouth twitched in that fond, exasperated smile he reserved for when he was dealing with Maya. He looked at me then, one brow arched as if to ask silently, "Are you sure you want that?" I was surprised by my reluctance. As much as I wanted to spend time with Maya and catch up, the thought of leaving Lucian's side made me feel bereft. But I nodded. "Yeah, she's right. We need to catch up." Maya smirked in victory and tugged me toward the elevator, tossing a flippant wave over her shoulder. "Don't pout too much, Alpha. You'll have her back tomorrow." Lucian's chuckle followed us into the elevator, low and indulgent, and the sound warmed my stomach even after the doors closed. Maya's room was on the last floor, tucked near the end of the corridor. When she flung the door open, I was met with the scent of eucalyptus and citrus oils she'd already set to diffuse, plus the unmistakable crinkle of snack bags spilling out of a tote and wine bottles in coolers. "Pajamas," she ordered, pointing toward the neatly folded set she'd placed on the bed. A pale peach cotton set, soft to the touch, embroidered with tiny white moons along the hem. "I bought them for you. Put it all on. No arguments." I unfolded them, and my eyes widened when a matching pair of lingerie fell out. I picked up the 3 strings masquerading as a thong and the matching bra. I would be shocked if it covered anything more than my nipples. "Maya," I sighed. "What?" She smirked. I laughed, shaking my head, but slipped into them anyway, while she fussed with arranging bowls of fruit, chocolates, snacks, and fizzy drinks across the little coffee table. When I emerged, Maya was already curled cross-legged on the bed, her hair in a loose halo around her head, eyes glittering with mischief. She patted the space beside her like a queen beckoning a courtier. "So," she began the moment I sat down, "progress report, you and Lucian, spill." I groaned, flopping back onto the pillows. "Progress report, Maya? It's a relationship, not a reconnaissance mission." I winced when she squealed, drumming her hands on the bed excitedly. "A relationship? You have no idea how happy that makes me, Sarah." I smiled. Yeah, me too. She shrugged, tearing open a bag of takis. To be honest, I was worried. I turned to her, propping my head up with my hands. About what? She tossed a piece at me, which I caught clumsily. About your trip with Kieran, she said, and the spicy corn chip turned to ash in my mouth. What about it? I mean, you were stuck on a tropical island with him for days. She shifted closer, those sharp eyes of hers tracking my movements. Anything happened between the two of you? What do you mean? She rolled her eyes. You're going to make me spell it out? No bold romantic encounters under the moonlight? She waggled her eyebrows, unaware of how accurately she'd hit the nail on the head. I cleared my throat, sitting up and turning away. You read too many romance novels. She arched a brow. That's not a denial. I coughed, reaching for a bottle of sparkling water. I downed half its contents before I spoke again. Of course it's a denial. I'm with Lucian, remember? I thought you were Team Lucian. The corners of her lips twitched. Yeah, I am. She threw a handful of chips into her mouth. Just wanted to make sure you still were, too, she mumbled as she chewed. I am, I insisted. She nodded. Such a shame, though. What? How romantic would it be if Lucian and Kieran had to fight for your heart? She dropped the bag of takis and began to gesticulate animatedly. The old versus the new, two alphas battling for the ultimate price. She pointed to me and smirked. Your heart. I shot her a look, trying not to mentally replay every single time Lucian and Kieran had stood off with me in the middle. Come on, it'll be awesome. Lucian would obviously win, and Kieran's heart would be dashed in the process. She spread her arms out. That, my sweet Sarah, is what I call justice. I snorted. Sorry to dash your hopes, babe. Never gonna happen. It was incredulous enough that Lucian wanted me, but the thought of two alphas fighting over me was more absurd than... I couldn't even think of anything more absurd than that. Her pout was so exaggerated I had to laugh again. Fine, ruin my fantasies. Be boring. I shook my head, chuckling. If you're so desperate for a love triangle fantasy, why don't you find another male wolf for Ethan to battle with? She scoffed. I don't think there's another male in existence that can measure up to Ethan. My smile widened. So I take it you two made up? Instantly, the playfulness softened into something warmer. She leaned back against the headboard, a dreamy little smile curving her lips. Yeah, we did. Things are good. Really good, actually. We've found our rhythm, I think. Less fighting, more laughing. I squealed, leaning in to hug her. That's amazing, Maya. I'm so glad. She squeezed me tightly. There is something else. I pulled back. What? We met each other's parents. My eyes widened. Oh, for real? She nodded, twisting a strand of hair between her fingers. I mean, it was more of a Zoom meeting with my parents, and I met your mom officially when she was first taken to the hospital. And? She shrugged. My folks are pretty supportive and have let me live my life majorly how I like. They would have been okay with any mate, but I could tell my dad was really happy he's an alpha. I chuckled. And my mom? I actually expected it to be weird, and was surprised Celeste hadn't poisoned her against me. I mean, she didn't hug me or throw me a party or whatever, but she was nice. I exhaled in relief. Ethan was traditional to his core, and I knew it would gut him if our mother didn't approve of his mate. I can't believe you're going to be my sister, I whispered in awe. She exhaled on a soft laugh. Don't hold your breath. My brows furrowed slightly. What do you mean? Aren't things perfect right now? They are, but... She paused, chewing her lip. I'm not ready for marriage. Not yet. Ethan talks about it sometimes, and I know he's serious. I love that he's serious. But I love where we are right now. The excitement, the silliness, the lovey-dovey dating phase. She shrugged. Marriage, especially to an alpha, comes with a shit ton of responsibility. I don't want to rush into all that just yet. I nodded. I understand. I reached forward and cupped her cheeks, squishing them together. Enjoy all the phases for as long as you want. Her eyes softened. Thanks. So I shifted, lying back and placing my head in her lap. Tell me more about your family. You practically know every dirty secret of mine. She laughed softly, stroking my hair. There isn't much to tell. You already know my dad's a beta. He always had high hopes for me, said I could do anything an alpha could do, maybe more. A wistful smile danced on her lips. He's part of why I do what I do. I want to prove him right. I smiled. He must be so proud of you. Her smile widened. Yeah, I think he is, especially since I started working with OTS. How did you actually start that? I asked, realizing just how little I knew about my new best friend. Maya tilted her head, eyes flicking toward the ceiling as though dredging up memories. It was years ago. I left home a little while after I turned 18, a little too sure of myself. I spent my time and resources traveling around the world trying to make a difference wherever I could. I mostly lived in impoverished areas, helped out where I could, human and werewolves alike. I stayed still, listening. One day, I crossed paths with a pack that had no love for outsiders. A group of vengeful alpha wolves, strong, angry, and looking for someone weaker to exert their power on. They were in for the shock of their lives when they met me. They hadn't expected me to be as strong as I was or to fight back, but soon their shock wore off and they overwhelmed me, fast. She clutched a pillow to herself, her voice softening. I was still young. I didn't know half the things I know now. I thought that was it. My heart clenched. Maya. But then he came. Lucian. A faint smile touched her lips. Like an actual knight in shiny black fur. It was beautiful to see, Sarah. He just dismantled them, one by one. Efficient, calm, like it was no more troublesome than swatting away flies. I smiled, remembering how he'd saved me from the rogues at my father's funeral and at the restaurant. The smile dimmed when the image of another wolf, with golden brown fur, tried to shift into my subconscious. I shot it down and refocused on Maya. And then when he was done, he held his hand out to me and smiled warmly and said, "Thanks for loosening them up for me. I don't think I could have taken them down otherwise." I laughed, picturing it so clearly. Lucian, unshakable and steady, calmly standing against impossible odds. He invited me to join him afterward, Maya continued, said he was putting together something different, a group that wasn't bound by politics or power, but by choice and determination. Out of the shadows. I didn't even hesitate. I would have followed him anywhere. I whispered, "You trust him that much?" "Yes." Her eyes met mine, steady. Even now, after all these years, he's never given me any reason not to. He's hard to read sometimes, distant, maybe a little closed off. But he's a good man, Sarah, the kind you can build a foundation on. I've seen him grow from gloomy, repressed, almost suffocating himself with restraint, to someone more composed, more grounded. And lately, she paused, smile softening, lately I've seen him loosen up, because of you. I swallowed, heat curling low in my chest. "Because of me?" She nodded. "You've changed him, Sarah. He laughs easier, smiles more. There's lightness where there used to be weight. Don't underestimate what that means." Her words sank into me like warm tea, sweet and steadying. I thought of Lucian's rare smiles, the way his eyes softened when they found me, how he'd admitted, so uncharacteristically, that he was jealous, that he'd missed me. And beneath the sweetness of a remembering, a familiar flicker of guilt passed too. That I'd wavered, that I'd let old wounds with Kieran cloud what stood right in front of me. "I hope we can be happy together," I said softly. Maya reached out, squeezing my hand. "You will be, I know it." Serafina's Pove. Maya and I talked long into the night, our laughter muffled against pillows, our voices dipping low as we shared fragments of our lives. She told about how she was the fastest runner in her pack and beat half the boys in combat. She told me of her goth phase when she was 15 and all the ridiculous, inane ways she'd tried to dye her light brown wolf fur black as a result. I told her about my writing, how it felt to have people, even if they were strangers, appreciate me when no one else did. I told her how Daniel's laugh sounded like sunlight breaking through clouds, and how holding him was the best feeling in the world. We compared heartbreaks and half-healed scars, dreams and hopes we hadn't dared to speak out loud. Somewhere down the hall, muffled voices of other OTS members still carried, but here it was only us. Two women, wrapped in warmth, trust, and the rare kind of friendship that made the world feel bearable. As the night went on, the hotel's quiet hum a cocoon around us, I could feel our connection click into place. I could feel her becoming more than just a friend, a sister. Considering that, I felt mildly guilty at the jolt of excitement that went through me when Maya finally drifted off. Wine glass tipped sideways, a blanket pulled up to her chin. Wasting no time, I slipped quietly from the bed, my heart thudding loudly. I tiptoed past the scattered soda and beer bottles and empty chip bags, eased the door open, and held my breath until it clicked shut behind me. For a moment, I stood still in the dim corridor, ears straining. The lodge had fallen quiet, save for the faint rush of the hot spring vents outside. I felt a mix of exhilaration and guilt, like a teenager sneaking out to meet a forbidden crush, except I wasn't a teenager. And Lucian was more than a silly crush. I didn't get more than 2 steps before strong arms wrapped around me. I let out a soft gasp that melted instantly as warmth and oude enveloped me. "Got you," Lucian murmured against my ear, his voice low and amused. My lips curved despite myself. "You scared me half to death." His chest vibrated with quiet laughter. "That wasn't my intention. But I admit, seeing you sneak out like this," he tilted his head, brushing his lips just below my ear, "has a certain appeal." Heat bloomed under my skin. I turned in his hold, looking up into his eyes, sharp in the shadows, softened by the faint lantern glow. "Were you waiting here the whole time?" "Of course," he announced unashamedly, smiling boyishly. "Our second date is ready." A giddy laugh spilled out of me. "Second date? I did promise you one, didn't I?" The flutter in my chest grew frantic. "Yeah, but you've done so much today already." "I don't care, Serafina," he said, threading his fingers through mine. "I intend to take every chance with you I can." Something about the certainty in his tone tugged at places inside me I didn't even know existed. For so long, love had meant compromise, sacrifice, being the afterthought. And yet, here was a man who redefined it, who made me feel chosen, wanted. "What if Maya wakes up and notices I'm gone?" I asked, my voice softer, though my body was already leaning toward him. His thumb brushed slow circles over my knuckles. "She snoozes, she loses." I threw my head back, soft laughter bouncing off the velvet-lined walls. Lucian leaned closer, eyes glinting with mischief. "What do you say, Sarah? Will you come with me?" There was absolutely no hesitation as I nodded. "Lead the way, Alpha Reed." He chuckled, clearly pleased, and guided me down the silent hallway. We passed the terrace where OTS members had laughed and lounged earlier, now deserted. Lanterns burned low, their golden light swaying with the night breeze. Lucian pushed open a side door, leading me out toward the edge of the springs. The sight stole my breath. A thick blanket had been spread across the stone floor, piled high with pillows that looked ridiculously plush. A tray of chocolate-dipped fruit gleamed, their dark coats glossy under the candlelight. A bucket of wine sat chilling beside us, condensation dripping onto the rock. Dozens of small candles floated in bowls across the steaming water, their flames flickering, reflecting like stars scattered across the surface. It was simple, but it was so unbelievably beautiful. "You did all this?" I whispered, stunned. Lucian shrugged, almost sheepish. "Do you like it?" Emotion pricked hot behind my eyes. I wrapped my arms around myself, not from cold, but from the sharp ache of my emotions. "No one's ever done this for me before." He tilted his head, studying me like he was memorizing the moment. "What can I say? Every man you've met before me has been a fool. You deserve all the love and beauty in the world, Sarah." My throat tightened, but I managed a shaky laugh. "Careful, Lucian. If you keep saying things like that, I might start believing them." "I hope you do." He offered his hand again, palm open, steady, because every word is true. I slid my hand into his, letting him guide me down onto the blanket. The springs hissed and bubbled nearby, their rising steam curling around us, softening the night into something dreamlike. Lucian poured the wine, handing me a glass. His fingers brushed mine, deliberate, lingering, and my pulse jumped. "To our second date," he said. I lifted my glass, my lips trembling at the edges of a smile. "To second chances." Our glasses clinked, soft and intimate in the quiet. We ate slowly, talking between bites of fruit. The chocolate melted on my tongue, the wine warm in my chest. Lucian's voice wove around me, steady, confident, carrying stories from his travels, mundane memories, and quirks that made him even more endearing. In return, I found myself giving him the same pieces of myself I rarely offered because no one cared enough to hear them. My favorite color, movies and books I liked, all the places I wanted to see. The way he listened unraveled me. He didn't just hear me, he absorbed every word as if I were saying something vital. At one point, I laughed over a clumsy story about sneaking sweet treats from the Lockwood kitchen, and he caught me with such an intense gaze that my laughter faltered. "What?" I asked, self-conscious. His hand brushed mine beneath the tray, curling over it firmly. "You have the most beautiful laugh," he said simply. My chest squeezed so hard I almost couldn't breathe. I set down my glass before I spilled it, my fingers trembling. "You're dangerous, Lucian Reed." "Dangerous?" His smile crooked, teasing. "Because I tell you the truth?" "Because you make me want to believe it," I whispered. His eyes softened. He shifted, abandoning his glass entirely to move closer until his knee pressed against mine. His hand didn't let go of mine. If anything, he tightened the hold. "Serafina," he said lowly, "you are everything I never knew I needed, and I will tell you all the ways you're amazing. I will recount how beautiful you are, over and over again, till you believe it." I swallowed hard, my heartbeat thundering. "Lucian?" But he didn't let me finish. His lips captured mine. The kiss was soft at first, reverent, then deepening with a hunger that stole my breath. I clung to his shoulders, my body trembling as I leaned into him. His hand cradled my face with surprising gentleness, while the other splayed against my lower back, anchoring me against him. Heat surged through me, and with it a wave of relief. I'd been scared that Lucian and I would never reach the intensity I'd always believed was essential, but I didn't need to worry anymore. I wanted him, fully, completely, and for once, I didn't care about past scars or future fears. When he broke the kiss, his forehead rested against mine, his breath ragged. "You undo me, Sarah, every time." "Then we're even," I whispered, my voice barely steady, "because I don't recognize myself around you." His answering groan was half desperation, half reverence, and he kissed me again, fiercer this time. I tipped back onto the pillows, pulling him with me, the world narrowing to the press of his body, the rush of blood in my ears, the taste of wine and chocolate and him. And then the world went black. The lights cut out with a sharp snap, plunging everything into total darkness. The hum of the lodge dimmed to silence, leaving only the hiss of the springs and our ragged breathing. "Damn it," Lucian hissed, jerking back slightly. "Of all the He caught himself, jaw tightening as if he'd swallowed the curse halfway. I blinked against the sudden dark, disoriented. Then I reached for him, my fingers finding his cheek, warm and taut under my touch. "Hey," I whispered, smiling even though he couldn't see me. "It's okay." I felt the heaviness of his sigh. "I just want one perfect date with you, Sarah." "It doesn't matter." I leaned in close. "This is still perfect to me." His breath shuddered out. He dropped his forehead against mine, defeated but softened. "I mean it. You're going to undo me, Serafina." I kissed him again, hunger mingling with reassurance. Darkness only made it easier to lose myself in him. The world was gone, and all I knew was his mouth, his hands, the safety and danger of his arms around me. But then, "Sarah!" Maya's voice floated faintly down the hall. I froze. "Sarah!" Louder this time, threaded with worry. Lucian groaned, his head falling onto my shoulder. "Of course," he muttered, sounding half murderous, half resigned. This time, I couldn't bring myself to comfort him because I felt his frustrations. Could I ever go all the way with a man without getting fucking interrupted? Serafina's pauvre. The warmth of Lucian's body still clung to me, his scent an intoxicating fog around me. For a heartbeat, I wished I could stay wrapped in him and let the world wait. But reality, aka Maya freaking Cartridge, was clawing its way back in. "She's bound to find you sooner or later," Lucian murmured, and I shuddered as his lips brushed against the sensitive spot behind my ear. He sounded both amused and faintly annoyed. "Tant," I sighed and turned to press a quick kiss to his temple before pulling away. "I should go." She probably panicked when she woke and found me gone. His hand tightened around mine briefly, reluctant, then loosened. "Go, before she barges in and rains hell on me for stealing you away." A wicked grin tugged at his lips, though I doubt that will make me feel much remorse. I rolled my eyes, but I couldn't stop the smile that broke through. My pulse was still racing from the intensity of what had almost happened between us. I touched his jaw one last time, memorizing the shape of it in the dark before I stood. Snagging one last chocolate-covered strawberry for good measure, I slipped out into the dim hallway. Maya stood halfway down, barefoot, hair tangled from sleep, hugging her blanket around herself like a child frightened of the dark. The moment she saw me, relief washed over her face. "There you are, goddess Sarah," I thought. Her words halted when her eyes flicked past me to the glass door I'd come from. I didn't need to turn to know what she was seeing. Lucian by the hot spring, cleaning up after yet another interrupted date. Her brows shot up, then a knowing smile crept across her lips. I felt heat rush to my cheeks. Oh. She let out an exaggerated breath, clutching her chest as if she'd walked in on something scandalous. I see, and here I was worried you were kidnapped or fell into a hot spring or something. But no, you were occupied. I buried my face in my hands and sighed. Maya. She laughed softly, biting her lip to keep from teasing more. I'm sorry. Truly, I didn't mean to interrupt. I was just worried. But clearly with Lucian you're safe. Her eyes twinkled mischievously. You were being safe, right? 'Cause now might not be the right time to have another baby. Maya? She cackled as I groaned. You're incorrigible. Guilty. She backed away a step, her smile lighting up the hallway. I'll leave you two to it then. Have fun. She winked. But as she started to retreat, guilt prickled through me. She had only been worried, and I didn't want her going back alone in the dark, feeling dismissed. Plus, the mood had kind of been ruined. So I caught up quickly, slipping my arm through hers. Come on, I said softly. Let's go back together. She blinked, surprised, and put a hand to her chest, theatrically. Really? You're choosing plain old me over a sexy, brooding alpha? I rolled my eyes. Shut up. She laughed, then leaned into me as we walked. The silence between us was comfortable at first, just the sound of our footsteps soft against the plush carpet and the distant bubbling of the hot springs. But I could feel her practically vibrating with unasked questions. By the time we reached our room, she couldn't contain herself anymore. Okay, she burst out as soon as the door clicked shut. Spill. Everything. I rolled my eyes and collapsed onto the bed, pulling the blanket over my head. There's nothing to tell. Liar, she sing-songed, plopping down beside me and yanking the blanket away. Her grin was so wide it was ridiculous. You have that post-sex glow all over your face. Don't try to deny it. You're practically shining. I gasped. We did not have sex, Maya. Maybe not, but you definitely made out hard enough that you look like you got lip fillers. I groaned and shoved a pillow at her, but she only hugged it like a prize. It's not, I started, then stopped. The truth was, it was. Lucian had kissed me, touched me, and I'd loved it. It wasn't just the heat and intensity of it. It was the tenderness that slipped through, the gentle way he looked at me that filled me with a certainty. With Lucian, I never had to worry about getting burned. Not like with, I sighed. Fine, we kissed, that's all. Maya squealed, smacking the mattress like a teenager. And? It was better than before, I admitted, unable to stop the smile curling at my lips. She leaned in closer. Better than nice, sweet, gentle? You felt the spark? For some reason, I felt my lips tighten. The spark. Well, I cleared my throat. He's definitely not as restrained as before, and I bit my lip, the memory warm against my skin as I felt myself ease again. Gods, Maya, I could kiss him all night. It was really, really good. Her expression softened, the teasing falling away. You deserve that, Sarah. I'm so happy you found someone who adores you and treasures you like the precious jewel you are. The words sank further than I expected. Adored. Treasured. Two things I had never been in my marriage with Kieran. My throat tightened. I needed to rein in my wayward mind. Tonight had absolutely nothing to do with him or my past, and I needed the door I'd slammed on it to stay locked and stop swinging open at the most irritating moments. I snuggled into the pillows, turning to Maya. She mirrored my position. So, she urged excitedly, tell me more. There it was again, that giddy teenage exhilaration. I'd just come back from a date with my crush, and now I was telling my best friend about it. But as I recounted the date and all the mundane, inconsequential things we talked about, the warmth ebbed and a colder thought crept in. I shifted uneasily, staring up at the ceiling. Maya? I just realized I know Lucian's favorite color and that Rome is his favorite city and that he's an excellent swimmer, but I don't really know him. The words felt heavy. Not really, not in the ways that matter. I heard Maya's frown in her voice. What do you mean? I turned back to her. Beyond OTS, I don't know anything about his world. He's an alpha, and I don't even know anything about his pack. She tilted her head thoughtfully. That's true, but Lucian, he's always been private. Even with us at OTS, we know he runs everything flawlessly. We know he protects and cares for us, but she shook her head. I've never even been to his pack. I literally only know its name, which now that I think about it is very apt. Shadow Veil, I mumbled. Silence stretched between us, broken only by the faint hum of the wind outside. Then, with a sudden spark of mischief, Maya pulled out her phone. Let's see what we can find. I sat up quickly. Maya. What? It's harmless, she said with a grin. A little late-night cyberstalking never hurt anyone. Despite myself, I laughed. You sound like a teenager. Pot, meet kettle, she shot back. You were sneaking out and making out in the dark like one just now. My cheeks flamed. She wasn't wrong. We huddled together over her screen, searching Lucian's name, trying different combinations, keywords, anything that might lead us to the truth about his pack. But everything that popped up was about OTS, his leadership, his influence, his partnerships. Nothing about a home territory, no lineage, no records, no whispers of where he came from. And it seemed intentional. That unsettled me more than I wanted to admit. An alpha without a visible pack was strange enough, but one whose background was deliberately hidden? My gut twisted. That's weird, Maya muttered, scrolling through another empty page of results. Even the most obscure packs leave some kind of trail. Birth records, alliances, old disputes. But this, she frowned deeply, super weird. The unease inside me grew sharper. I hugged my knees to my chest, staring at the dark window across the room. I'll talk to him tomorrow, I decided, more to myself than to Maya. I need to know the truth, especially about his pack. If he was serious about making me his Luna, that meant I would eventually step into his world. I would be damned if I spent the rest of my life with another pack that hated me. I refused to go through that torture again. Maya reached over, squeezing my hand gently. Good. He owes you that much, Sarah. If he's serious about you, he'll tell you. I nodded, but even as I tried to steady myself, my thoughts spun. What if he didn't? What if the shadows around him weren't just secrets but dangers? I pressed my forehead to my knees, breathing slowly, forcing the fear down. I couldn't afford to be naive. This time, if I gave my heart, it had to be with eyes wide open. Serafina's Pove. The hotel dining room buzzed with the easy chatter of morning, sunlight spilling across plates stacked with eggs and toast. Light conversation, in addition to the clinking of cutlery, floated together into one messy melody. Most of the OTS members who had stayed overnight were slumped in their seats, bleary-eyed from staying up until ungodly hours, celebrating or gossiping. But oh, not Maya. She sat across from me at the small round table, bright-eyed and entirely too chipper, stirring cream into her coffee with a grin that was far too mischievous for so early in the day. She hadn't even tasted her eggs yet, but she looked plenty satisfied. You know, she said, drawing the words out like she was stringing pearls, since you two haven't checked out yet, there's still plenty of time to enjoy the sweet. She winked. I promise I won't interrupt this time. I nearly choked on my orange juice. Heat climbed into my cheeks so quickly it almost stung. Maya, I hissed, setting the glass down before I spilled it everywhere. Stop it. Next to me, Lucian's shoulders shook with a low laugh, not even bothering to hide his amusement. Instead, he leaned close, brushing his lips across mine. It was quick and soft, but it still made my toes curl in my shoes. Tempting suggestion, he murmured against my mouth, loud enough for Maya to hear, but unfortunately, duty calls. I have several important meetings today. The LST isn't going to organize itself. A jolt of nerves shot through me. LST, the latent spark trials. The ultimate test. The measure of how far every trainee had come. Months of grueling work condensed into one chance to prove we weren't just lucky beneficiaries, but fighters, worthy of a future. And I'd let Maya and Lucian convince me to sign up for it 3 months ago. At that point, it seemed like light years away, and I was too busy taking one day at a time to worry about it. But now, fuck, how had 3 months flown by so fast? Sure, I'd spent all that time training as hard as I could, being pushed to the brink by my psychotic trainer. But the knowledge of how close I was to being tested filled me with a cutting anxiety I hadn't felt in a long time. Lucian noticed the change in my demeanor and pulled back slightly, a furrow between his brows. You good? I nodded, smiling softly. Yeah, I'm good. He didn't look entirely convinced, but he didn't press. Instead, he leaned in again, lips brushing mine in a kiss so tender it made my chest ache. Don't worry about a single thing. You're going to kill it, I know it. Damn, Maya said, drawing our attention to her. She was fanning herself dramatically with her napkin. Here I was thinking the hottest thing on this table was my coffee. I groaned and pressed my palm to my face. I can't take you anywhere. Yes, you can, Maya countered cheerfully. We're the perfect balance of chaotic and calm. We're stuck together forever, I'm afraid. I snorted, unable to stop the wide smile on my face. Being stuck with Maya forever was probably one of the best things that could happen to me. The rest of breakfast passed like that. Lucian sneaking in kisses and subtle touches that left me blushing. Maya teasing every chance she got until my cheeks were hot enough to fry a fresh batch of eggs. When we were done, Lucian leaned in for one last lingering kiss. I'll come find you after my meeting, he said simply, like it was a vow. And somehow, with Lucian, it felt like one. Maya and I left the hotel not long after, wheeling our small bags back through the lobby. She chattered beside me, filling the morning air with easy laughter, but my thoughts lingered on Lucian's touch, the scent of his cologne still clinging faintly to my sweater from when he hugged me goodbye. On the ride home, a screen bolted to the back of the cab's headrest flickered with morning broadcasts. I wasn't really watching until Lucian's face appeared, and suddenly I couldn't look away. Over the past decade, he was saying, his deep voice carrying even through the tinny speakers, OTS has given underprivileged wolves the chance to prove themselves. Omegas, outcasts, wolfless, many of them females who would otherwise never be given the chance to step onto a training field. I've always believed they deserve to be seen, to be recognized, not hidden in shadows. Everyone has a spark inside them. All they need is a chance to shine. Maya sighed dreamily beside me, clutching my arm. God's above. Does he rehearse these things in the mirror, or is it just natural? I didn't answer. I was too busy losing myself in the allure of Lucian Reed. Watching him speak, not to me this time, but to the world. I melted. It was glaringly obvious that the camera loved him. His sharp jaw, his steady posture, the unwavering certainty in his voice, the conviction in his eyes. Lucian wasn't just handsome, he was captivating. Dangerous in a way that had nothing to do with claws or teeth, and everything to do with the way he made people believe. Hope. At that point, it didn't matter that I knew nothing about his pack or past. What mattered was that I knew him. He was good and kind and compassionate and noble, and I trusted him with a certainty that was sometimes scary. That was enough. The days that followed blurred into one long, breathless stretch of preparation. With the trials drawing closer, OTS was a hive buzzing louder every day. Contestants streamed in from the OTS branches all over the world, trainees who, like me, carried stories of struggles and survival, now given a chance to prove how far they'd come, to show the strength OTS had given them. If I'd known that my time with silly, playful Maya had an expiration date, I would have savored it more. Alas, I took it for granted, but I didn't have the energy to regret anything because I was too busy trying not to die from the murderous training regimen she threw me into. I ended every day aching in places I hadn't even known could ache, and coming up with new curse words for the deranged tormentor who had taken over my best friend's body. Yet every night, when I fell asleep to the scent of lavender, massage oil, and stiff limbs, I couldn't help but smile. I was pushing harder than I ever thought was possible, and I wasn't breaking. I was getting stronger, faster, better, and the feeling that gave me was worth every torn muscle. One morning, as I was changing before training, the hum of whispered voices reached me from the corner of the locker room. Can you believe she actually qualified? A woman without a wolf? Barely 3 months of training, that's all it took? Could anyone really be that strong? I mean, Maya Cartridge trains her, and I heard her numbers in the Sims are pretty high. Still, sounds pretty fucking unbelievable to me. Please, either she's hiding something or she got special treatment. Special treatment from who, though? A third voice piped up, sly and knowing. Lucian himself, maybe? Who else? Talk about sleeping your way to the top. Laughter rippled like claws scratching glass. I froze, my fingers stiff against the laces of my shoes. Another voice cut in, sharper. Doesn't matter. Lucian's influence won't help her out in the field. Jessica's going to wipe the floor with her, with all the contestants. After the trial, even the alphas will be lining up for Jessica. She won't stay an Omega forever. Their snickers echoed against the tiled walls. I clenched my jaw and forced myself to breathe, to focus on the rhythm of tying my boots instead of the sting burrowing beneath my ribs. I didn't care. I couldn't care. Words were cheap, and training, my work, my sweat, my determination was what mattered. Besides, I'd survived worse than whispers. In my pack, in Kieran's pack, and now here. It was all the same. I rose, ready to leave, but the moment I turned toward the exit, a shadow blocked my way. Speak of the devil, Jessica, Serafina's pove. I'd spent most of my life doing it, so keeping to myself came naturally. That's why, other than passing greetings, I never really related closely to any of the other OTS trainees, except for rare occasions of the parties or group drills. But I knew who Jessica was. Everyone did. Up close, she wasn't what most people imagined when they thought of an Omega. Her frame was lean but honed, every movement coiled with tension, with potential energy that could explode in an instant. Her gaze was cool, assessing, her mouth curved in a smile that didn't reach her eyes. She almost reminded me of Maya, except that meeting Maya hadn't sent a foreboding chill down my spine. Well, she drawled, folding her arms, the miracle trainee herself. I kept my expression neutral, refusing to give her the satisfaction of seeing me bristle. "Excuse me," I said, angling to step past her, but she shifted with me, blocking the path like she'd been waiting for this exact moment. Up close, I could feel it, the sharp edge of her presence. Jessica might have been born an Omega, but strength radiated from her in waves, enough to raise goosebumps on my skin. It wasn't just gossip propping her up. She was good, maybe even as good as they said. "Tell me something, Serafina," she purred, tilting her head. "What's it like, walking around here with everyone staring? Whispering? Do you ever feel like maybe you don't belong?" Her words hit something raw inside me. Memories flashed unbidden, of Lockwood Pack halls, of sneers and pity, of doors slammed in my face, of being told over and over that I wasn't enough. But this time, I wasn't going to flinch. I clenched my fists at my sides, forcing my pulse to calm. I had trained too hard, pushed too far, to let intimidation, no matter how potent, break me before the LSTs even began. Jessica, with her sleek movements and razor-sharp gaze, might have had the reputation of being untouchable, but I wasn't going to bow before it. Plus, after ingesting Celeste's poison so often, I'd built an immunity to catty bitches. "Excuse me, Jessica," I said evenly, trying to sidestep her. "I really don't have time for..." She pivoted gracefully, stepping into my path again with a sly smile, her eyes glinting with the kind of amusement that only comes from someone who knows they have the upper hand. She was reminding me less of Maya and more of Celeste. "Don't tell me you're running," she said, voice smooth as silk, but carrying an edge that raised goosebumps along my arms. "Not after all the talk. Not after everyone's been whispering about you. I think it's only fair we see what you're made of." I frowned. "What do you mean?" She tilted her head, gaze locked on mine. "A one-on-one, right here, right now. I want to see if the miracle trainee is all hype." My frown deepened. OTS rules explicitly prohibited private battles outside the trials themselves. "Jessica," I said firmly, "we both know that's not allowed. You can't just..." She laughed, the sound sharp and cutting. "Scared, are we?" Her smile widened, but her eyes didn't waver. "If you can't even handle an Omega like me, the Shadowvale Pack will never accept you as Luna, no matter how much our Alpha fancies you." The information hit me square in the chest, but realization took a little linger to unfold. Our Alpha? Jessica wasn't just some random trainee with an attitude problem. She was from Lucian's pack, Shadowvale. A flicker of anger surged, but I swallowed it down. I had no idea why she was hostile. It was hard to believe that, as gentle and kind as Lucian was, someone from his pack could be so acerbic. I met her gaze calmly. "Jessica, I'm not here to compete for anyone's approval. Not even Lucian's, and he wouldn't want me to. My purpose at OTS is the mission. I'm here to prove that Omegas, outcasts, underdogs, anyone deemed less than, can rise, can be recognized, can show the world their worth. That's what matters." Her smile twisted, disbelief and disdain mingling. "Hypocrite," she hissed. "You're Alpha-born. Your brother is an Alpha. Your ex-husband is an Alpha. You're fucking an Alpha. You've had advantages I'm not even worthy to dream of. And you waltz in here and dare to act like you're one of us? Stealing chances from Omegas who actually need them?" I tilted my head, studying her. She wasn't just aggressive. She was wounded, defensive, and to maintain a dominance she'd never experienced. In a way, it humbled me. As shitty as my life was, there were others who had it worse. I'm sorry you feel that way, Jessica, but I haven't. She lunged, quick and precise, but I sidestepped with an instinctive grace I didn't know I had, the momentum carrying her forward harmlessly. The sound of shuffling feet and whispered gasps drew my attention. More and more trainees were gathering around, forming a loose circle, eager to watch. Everyone here has suffered rejection, I said, raising my voice enough to carry over the murmurs. Every single one of us. Whether we're omegas, wolfless, packless, or alpha-born, we all know what it's like to be told we're not enough. We didn't come here to outshine each other. We didn't come here to prove our worth to anyone else but ourselves. We came to get stronger, to rise above the tides that tried to drown us, to become queens in our own right. A hush fell. Eyes widened, whispers stopped. For a moment it felt like the room itself was holding its breath, waiting for her response. The quiet was thick, heavy, and yet electric. I could see nods among a few omegas, hesitant smiles, quiet acknowledgement in the eyes of trainees who had never imagined someone would give voice to their struggle so plainly. Jessica blinked, expression flickering between irritation and surprise. "Cheap words," she said finally, voice dripping with scorn. "You think you can win hearts or respect with speeches? Don't be naive, Serafina. On the tournament grounds, no one's going to waste time listening to your rambling." I straightened, meeting her stare head-on, unwavering. "Maybe not, but you should be careful, Jessica, because if you try to undermine OTS mission, if you let your petty jealousy and entitlement turn this noble cause into a joke, Lucian won't let you off easy." The words hit her like a slap, and I could see the momentary falter, a spark of unease behind her steely facade. She clenched her jaw, a muscle twitching there as her eyes narrowed, but she didn't back down. "You think you're clever," she hissed, her body coiled like a spring, "but words don't win tournaments." I gave a small, controlled smile. "No, they don't. But sometimes words remind people why they started, what matters. You seem like you need to be reminded of that, Jessica. You need to be reminded that here, there's no such thing as hierarchy. We are unique in our problems, but equal in our worth." Her breath hitched slightly, a subtle acknowledgement that I had hit a nerve. She didn't smile this time. She didn't lunge. But I could feel the tension in her, the fire in her stance, the readiness for confrontation that hadn't dissipated. The murmurs of agreement, soft at first, began to ripple through the crowd. Some trainees clapped quietly, others whispered affirmations. It was subtle, but it mattered. Even if Jessica couldn't see it yet, the effect of speaking my truth was already spreading. Jessica's nostrils flared, and she tilted her head, lips pressing into a line. "We'll see, Serafina," she said, almost a growl. "We'll see who comes out on top. And don't think for a second Lucian's approval, or your lineage, will save you." I nodded once, firmly, and allowed a small smirk. "I don't expect it to. No one but me can fight my battles." Her eyes narrowed, and she finally stepped aside. The current of tension lingered, a live wire, but the crowd around us seemed to settle, whispers blending with the faint hum of the locker room. As I walked past her, shoulders squared, pulse steady, I realized something vital. Strength wasn't just about muscle, speed, or training. Strength was conviction, belief in your own purpose. And somewhere over the last 3 months, I'd gained a lot of that in abundance. Jessica might have tried to intimidate me. She might have tested me with her gaze and her words. But in doing so, she had only reminded me why I was here and why I could not be shaken. Before I left the room, I glanced back at Jessica one last time. She was watching, lips pressed tight, and I allowed myself a small, private victory smile. Let the trials come. Let every eye be on us. And let the world remember that sometimes the quiet, overlooked ones are the fiercest of all. Serafina's povey. After that lovely interaction in the locker room, I threw myself into training. I wasn't stupid enough to think that would be the last I heard of Jessica or the whispers, and I was determined to be able to put my money where my mouth was. So I pushed myself harder than usual. By the time we were done, every ounce of strength had been wrung from me, leaving my body humming with fatigue. But my mind was still taut with the restless need to keep going. But as I pushed myself up, ready to go another round of drills, Maya the tormentor disappeared, and I got my best friend back. And then she suggested we go on a shopping run. I was just happy to see a smile that wasn't immediately followed by, "Good, now run that again 100 times," so I didn't hesitate. She bounced on her toes as if she hadn't just run drills in the sun all morning, her braided ponytail swinging like she was part of a commercial. I envied that boundless energy. My own legs felt like lead. "Retail therapy," Maya declared. "It's the only cure for aching muscles and bruised egos." I arched a brow at her. "There it is." She shot me a "who me" look, and I rolled my eyes. "Nothing happens in OTS without you knowing, Maya. I wondered why you didn't bring it up during training." She shrugged. "I'm afraid I don't know what you're talking about." I snorted. "Yep, sure." I stopped and pointed a finger at her. "But for the record, my ego is perfectly intact. Thanks." She grinned, patting my arm. "That's my girl." We stepped out into the warmth of the evening air, and she took a deep breath. "Now what store do you want to hit first?" One thing about Maya, no matter what she did, whether it was training drills or gossiping or shopping, she did it thoroughly. She tugged me through the mall like a force of nature, and if I didn't know better, I'd think the trial had a shopping challenge, and this was another form of training. One minute she had me shrugging into a sequin jacket under 2 bright lights, the next slipping oversized sunglasses onto my face, cackling when they slid down my nose. We sampled lipsticks, debated handbags, laughed until our sides hurt at Maya wobbling in a pair of ridiculous boots. By the time we flopped onto a bench near the food court, arms weighed down with more of Maya's bags than mine, I caught my reflection in a shop window, a light sheen of sweat from exertion, cheeks flushed from laughter. I looked alive. That was when Maya pulled out her phone, eyes sparkling like she'd been saving a secret all along. "Yes, it's finally out." I glanced over curiously. "What?" She showed me the screen. It was a compiled list of top contenders for the tournament, their names ranked, their profiles written like celebrity athlete bios. It was arranged in descending order, and my eyes skimmed over the first few until they froze on one name, Serafina Blackthorn. A sudden churn tightened my stomach, the pretzel I'd snacked on earlier, threatening to claw its way back up. "Maya," I whispered, "why am I on this?" Her smile was pure sunshine. "Because you're incredible, duh. Your training records aren't a secret. Your stats are phenomenal for your progress level. It would be criminal for you not to be on it." I wanted to argue, to say this must have been some kind of mistake, and I wasn't as great as everyone thought. But would it be so bad for once to believe that I was actually capable of something? I'd put in the work. I was determined, and deep within, I knew. I no longer felt like the weak, defenseless Sarah who let the world walk all over her. So yeah, maybe I belonged on the list, along with the best of the... My eyes snagged on another name at the top of the list, and the taste in my mouth soured. Of course, Jessica Killorn. I swallowed and forced my voice to stay casual. "You know her, right?" I dropped Maya's phone on the table and idly tapped the screen. "Jessica?" Maya's expression soured immediately, her nose wrinkling as if I'd mentioned something rotten. "Unfortunately." "That bad?" "She's talented," Maya admitted reluctantly, grabbing her phone and glaring at it. "Strong, sharp, you wouldn't know she's an Omega with how fierce she is. People like her win these tournaments because they have the stamina and the bite. But no, we don't exactly braid each other's hair. She's... competitive." Competitive was a generous word. I thought back to Jessica's razor-edge smile, the way she'd tried to cut me down in front of everyone. Maya caught my expression and rolled her eyes, softer now. "Hey, don't let her get in your head." Notice how I didn't want to talk about the locker room incident. She is so not worth the headspace. I shrugged. But no maybes and no buts, Maya cut in. She squeezed my hand with a reassuring grin. "I don't care what position she is on a stupid list. You are already my champion." The words cracked something open in me, ease spilling in where nerves had been gnawing. "Besides," she added with a wink, "you have the best trainer in all of OTS. The finest, most beautiful, lethal, Lucian." I raised a brow. "Huh?" When I realized that she was looking over my shoulder, I turned around and familiar warmth soothed my stomach. Lucian was walking towards us, and even in jeans and a dark shirt rolled at the sleeves, he carried himself like a man carved from authority. "Perfect timing," she squealed, rising from her seat. Then, with exaggerated nonchalance, she tapped her phone. "Ethan just texted me. He needs me. Guess I'll have to ditch you guys." She pouted. What a tragedy. "Maya," I started, but she was already kissing my cheek, whispering, "You're welcome," before flouncing out with a wink, barely staggering under the weight of her bags. That left me with Lucian, his eyes warm as they swept over me. "Well," he chuckled, "I was going to take you both out for dinner, but I guess it'll be just you and me." I nodded, smiling as I stood. "Yeah." He crooked his elbow, and I slipped my arm through, leaning against him as we walked out of the mall. Maybe this time, we'll get through the entire date without being interrupted. I laughed, leaning against him. I think my favorite thing about being with Lucian was how natural it felt. Fingers crossed. Lucian chose the restaurant. Soft lighting, intimate tables, scents of roasted herbs, and freshly baked bread curling through the air. I settled into the cushioned booth across from him, picking at the menu until Lucian leaned forward, eyes glittering with mischief. "So, have you reached the stage of training where your appetite is as big as a few cows?" My head snapped up, startled into laughter. "Cows?" He shrugged. "It's inevitable. You burn calories all day, you gain muscle, your metabolism spikes, you turn ravenous." I grinned, leaning back. "What's the matter? You worried this meal will drain your entire fortune?" "Possibly," he deadpanned, though the curl of his lips betrayed him. Then he leaned forward. "But for you, it'll be worth it." I made a face even though my lips were stretched. I'd better not order anything with cheese. There's enough of it on this table." Lucian's whole body shook with his laughter, and it felt like I could get full on the sound alone. Half an hour later, the food arrived, and Lucian was proven right. I hadn't realized it till the food was before me, but I was voracious. I ate with a surprising vigor, feeling like I was pouring water into a basket. When I finally took a break and came up for air, I found Lucian's gaze lingering on me. Heat rose in my cheeks. There were certain disadvantages to feeling comfortable with someone. Without a word, he leaned across the table, thumb brushing the corner of my lips. The contact was feather-light, yet it sent a shiver coursing through me. "I'm not a child anymore," I murmured, embarrassed by the way my skin burned. "No," he said softly, eyes never leaving mine. "You're my hard-found treasure, and treasures are to be cherished carefully." His thumb, still slick with the gravy he'd brushed from my lips, hovered for a breath before he drew it into his mouth, slow and deliberate. And every coherent thought blasted out of my mind. But later, when the plates were cleared and the air between us had settled into something comfortable, I found Jessica's name slipping into my mind again, like a thorn pressing against my gray matter. "Our alpha, Lucian," I said quietly. "Can I ask you something about your pack?" Given the suspicious outcome of Maya's and my harmless cyberstalking, I expected Lucian to lock up at the mention of his pack. But he didn't hesitate, didn't flinch or deflect. His voice was calm, natural. "What do you want to know?" I blinked. I'd braced myself for more of a resistance, and now felt like I'd forcefully slammed into a door that was already ajar. What do they think of me? Of this?" I gestured vaguely between us. He leaned back, expression thoughtful. "My people support me. They've seen what I've built, how I lead. Of course, some of them are already aware of you, unofficially." Then he leaned forward and took my hand in his. "And when I make it official, I know they'll support us." I swallowed, thinking of Jessica's disdain. "Are you sure?" He smiled, his thumb swiping across my knuckle reassuringly. "I want you to meet them." The knot in my chest loosened. "Really?" "After the LST," he said firmly, as if it were already decided. "I'll invite you formally. You'll love it there, and they'll love you." And despite my less-than-stellar track record with packs, despite the sharp poison of Jessica's words, something in me dared to believe him. Serafina's Pove. When I asked Lucian if he wanted to come in after he dropped me off, my heart was pounding in my throat. It didn't look like we would have any interruptions tonight. And the thought of what that meant, finishing what we started in the hotel, had me wiping sweaty palms against my jeans. But then Lucian pulled out Uno cards, and the laugh that burst out of me carried away all the tension and anxiety. An hour later, we were still sitting cross-legged on the carpet, a half-empty bottle of wine between us. I leaned forward, hair tumbling loose over my shoulders as I smirked. "Uno." I flicked my last card onto the pile. I giggled as Lucian groaned, dropping his cards down and accepting his 16th consecutive defeat. Your luck is terrible, I teased. Do you even know how to shuffle? He shook his head. Those cards are cursed, I snorted. They're your cards. On! The big scary alpha is shit at children's games. That's so adorable. His scowl was mock serious. Careful, Serafina, I smirked. Oh, what? You'll pout me into silence? He narrowed his eyes, gathering the scattered cards with deliberate slowness. You think you're bold now? Before I could reply, he lunged, tackling me backward onto the rug. A startled squeal broke from my throat as he pinned my wrists to my sides, looming above me with theatrical menace. Lucian! I gasped, wriggling, though laughter bubbled uncontrollably in my chest. This, he intoned, voice low and dangerous, is what happens when you mock the big scary alpha. His hands tightened just enough to make me squirm, but his eyes shone with boyish mischief. I kicked half-heartedly, laughing so hard my ribs ached. You're a sore loser, I wheezed. And you're insufferable, he countered, dipping close enough that his breath brushed my cheek. I pouted, and I didn't know if it was the wine or giddy happiness swirling in my veins, but the next words that came out of my mouth were, Well, what are you going to do about it? Lucian's eyes glittered down at me, heat and mischief tangled together like smoke curling into flame. His weight held me pinned, wrists locked in his grip, but I knew I wasn't in any danger, of being hurt at least. But the way his smile tilted, the way my pulse hammered because of it. Yeah, that was the real danger. Well, he murmured, leaning so close that every syllable brushed across my lips. Is that a challenge, Sarah? You want to see how I punish insubordination? My laughter faltered, caught in my throat. The room seemed to shrink, until it was only his dark hair falling loose around his face, tickling my cheek, the wine warming my blood, and the sharp, aching awareness of him pressing me into the rug. I swallowed, defiant despite the way my body betrayed me. Yes. The word was barely a whisper, but I forced my chin up. Show me. Lucian's grin widened, eyes glinting. You'll regret that challenge. I slowly bit my lips. Somehow, I doubt that. For a suspended second, the world narrowed to his weight above me, his smile, the warmth of his body anchoring mine. Then he released my wrists, only to catch them again, pulling them above my head in one firm grip. His free hand slid deliberately, unbearably slow, down my arm, my shoulder, my side. The trail of heat he left behind made my lungs stutter and my breath shatter into uneven gasps. Lucian? My voice broke, caught between warning and want. Still laughing? He teased, his thumb grazing the curve of my hip bone. I shook my head helplessly, though a smile tugged at my lips. He leaned lower until our noses nearly brushed, until I could feel the faint hitch in his breathing that betrayed his own restraint. The playful menace had softened into something else entirely, something charged and intimate. The air between us thickened. My body arched without thinking, tugged toward him like metal to a magnet. His lips brushed my jaw. Say it again, he whispered. My breath trembled out of me. Uno? He huffed a laugh against my skin, the vibration sending shivers down my spine. Not that, he growled, mock-offended, nipping lightly at my shoulder. Sharp enough to send a zing of electricity through me. I gasped, then laughed, then gasped again when his mouth lingered, higher now at the corner of my lips, hovering in a way that set my nerves on fire. His control frayed. Mine snapped entirely. Lucian, I whispered, and this time there was no contradiction. It was all need. He shifted as if he might finally close that agonizing gap and devour me whole when my phone rang. The sharp, tinny sound cut through the tension like slashing claws. I froze. Lucian groaned low in his throat, forehead pressing against mine in pure frustration. What was that saying? Once is happenstance, twice is coincidence, 3 times is what the fuck? Don't, he muttered. Let it die. But the sound pierced again, insistent. My chest tightened. What if it's Maya or Daniel? Lucian sighed, muscles taut but rolled off me with obvious reluctance. I scrambled upright, hair rumpled, cheeks flaming, fumbling for the glowing screen. The caller ID was an unknown number. I hesitated, thumb hovering before I finally answered. Hello? Static at first. Then a voice, rough and harried. Hi, yeah, listen, your husband's here at the bar. He's drunk as hell, causing a scene. Can you come get him? My mind blanked. Husband? It took a beat too long to click. My stomach dropped. Kieran? I blurted, pulse spiking. I don't know his name. I grabbed his phone. This number was number 1 on his speed dial, so I figured you must be. Before I could process, another voice cut in, slurred but unmistakable. I'm fine, Kieran snapped. There was a shuffle, and then his voice sounded closer, sharp with irritation. This is a misunderstanding. I don't need anyone. I'm fine, so don't bother, Sarah. But the way he drawled my name told me that he wasn't in fact fine, and I needed to, in fact, bother. My throat tightened. Kieran. The phone was suddenly plucked from my hand. Lucian pressed it to his ear, his face carved into a cold mask. This is Lucian Reed, he said smoothly, authority wrapping around each syllable. If you're in actual trouble, I'll send someone immediately to assist you. If not, I expect there won't be any further interruptions tonight. I stiffened, my mouth opening in alarm. Lucian. But on the other end, a string of curses crackled, then the line went dead. Lucian lowered the phone, jaw tight, and set it deliberately on the table. The room buzzed with the silence that followed. My pulse thundered. Lucian, I whispered, unsure whether I was pleading or scolding. Why did you? His eyes softened when they found mine. Because I'm done with interruptions of our time together, least of all from Kieran, he said, voice quieter now, tinged with something raw. Because I needed to remind him that you're not his to call anymore. He threw away that chance. You're mine now. Mine. The word caught in the air between us like a spark. My chest ached, caught between guilt and the undeniable warmth blooming in my ribs. I bit my lip. Lucian, I'm sorry. Things shouldn't be like this. You shouldn't have to tell my ex-husband off. Maybe I'm not... My throat worked. Maybe I'm not a good enough girlfriend if you have to. Lucian surged forward and cupped my cheek, forcing me to meet the fire in his gaze. Don't you dare, he murmured fiercely. Don't you dare blame yourself for another man's inability to let go. Kieran didn't cherish you when he had you. That's his mistake, one I'll never make. My breath hitched. His thumb traced my cheekbone, tender where his words were sharp. There was that disarming conviction again, tugging tightly bound emotions loose in my chest. I leaned into him, voice trembling. You mean that? He smiled then, the edge softening, eyes warm. I've never meant anything more. Something hot pricked my eyes, and before I could stop myself, I threw my arms around him, his embrace folded around me instantly, strong and certain, like it belonged there. For a long moment I just breathed him in, letting his steadiness drown out the doubts gnawing at me. When I finally pulled back, a teasing smile tugged at my lips, shaky but real. So, do you still want to finish what we started? Lucian chuckled low, brushing a strand of hair from my face. The moon goddess must be testing me, he said, mock dramatic. So many interruptions. Maybe she's warning us not to rush. I frowned, but his grin was gentle as he went on. I promise we will, Sarah. Just not yet. I want to wait, until you've visited my pack, until you've seen what it means to stand beside me, until you're ready to be my Luna, until everything is perfect. The weight of his words settled deep in my chest. My lips parted, both moved and hungry. I narrowed my eyes playfully. You better not regret that, Lucian Reed, because I have no intention of hiding the charms you so confidently claim I have. His answering smile was dazzling. I wouldn't dream of asking you to. He placed a warm, soft kiss on my temple. Trust me, I know a thing or two about restraint. That night, we didn't make love. Instead, we slipped beneath the covers, tangled together in the quiet warmth of shared breath. His arms anchored me, his heartbeat steady beneath my cheek. And for the first time in 10 years, I went to bed with a man's arms around me, and I fell asleep easily, safe in the knowledge that morning wouldn't bring devastation. The morning light seeped soft and golden through the curtains when the sharp buzz of the doorbell startled me awake. Lucian stirred beside me, groaning into my hair. Ignore it, he mumbled, voice rough with sleep. But the chime rang again, longer, more insistent. I sighed, untangling myself from his embrace, padding downstairs with my hair disheveled and heart still heavy with warmth. But that warmth was instantly swallowed by frost when I opened the door. If you guessed Kieran, you would be wrong. If you guessed Celeste, you would be also wrong. But if you guessed my mother, ding, ding, ding.